Here we are. Happy Friday, everybody out there. It is time for Beyond the Sim, and today is a first in Beyond the Sim history, that's for sure. And that's because not only do I have Billy Strange here with me, not only do I have Brandon Waters, but we also have Gamer Muscle, aka James West, here in the studio. And we are just here to BS about sim racing. That is all we do. That is the whole point of the show. Welcome, James, Billy, and Brandon. How's everybody doing today?
Fantastic.
Good, thanks.
Yeah, doing great.
Yeah.
Hi,
excellent.
Shaun.
Hi, James.
Hi. Welcome to the SImpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'm here.
How ill-prepared am I?
It so funny.
I did not work on my British accent for today, and that's
Come on.
the mistake I made. Oh, damn
man.
you, Cole. Damn you, Cole. So, we do like to start the show off, and James, I'm going to go to you first. We always like to start off, hey, so what have you been up to this week? You're a streamer. You're a content provider. You are a known sim racing entity. What have you been up to this week? What is the most fun you've had in sim racing this week?
Oh, the week of muscle. The week of muscle has been an exciting week where much has happened. We've built a sim rig. We've built a monitor stand. We've live streamed. We've played driving simulators. What else has happened? Depression over the news has happened. The United Kingdom news depression. Yeah, we're mostly just sim racing. Mostly sim racing, to be honest. AC. I've been playing iRacing, the new time model on the Skippy, and I am a fan of the Skippy, so that's good.
Which they're going to get rid of.
There's controversy over that time model.
Yes,
I don't
there
know.
is.
There's the Skippy time model controversy. Been playing that, enjoying that. I came first last week in an oval race. You'll be proud of me, Shaun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it wasn't because everyone killed themselves. It was totally due to tactics, skill, and direct drive wheel.
That's fair enough. That's
maybe I came third, not first. I don't know. I'm going to pretend I came first either way. It felt like a win. It's good enough. Shaun's already given up. He's like, oh, God. Why did we have this guy? Why? The channel? Oh, no. I've made a fatal error. It's all breaking. But,
oh, my God.
Yeah, so, that's it. We just are racing Assetto, Sims. But the real question is, why does Billy Strange have very small miniature steering wheels behind him?
Very small. That's a good depth perception.
Makes his hands look big.
Yeah, I was going to say, it just makes me feel better about myself.
Oh,
Very
fair
small hands. So you talk about the tire model on the Skippy. You've got to tell us what you think about it.
I was thinking the same thing.
What do I think about? Well, the thing is, personally, I'm going to start a ruckus now because I know Americans love iRacing. It's like the iRacing simulator, but I don't like the force feedback in iRacing. It's really good detail for like suspension and everything, and it's really it's not like I've never said this before. God, he won't shut up about it. What an idiot! But the time model. Two things that are good about the tire model. So first, I don't care if it's realistic or not because I don't know. I'm not going to go in the real Skippy. But what's really nice is it seems like the grip returns sooner when it goes. It seems like the grip comes back sooner.
I agree.
So that negates the iRacing annoying, or it's not just iRacing, any simulator annoying stuck in understeer characteristic. Which, ignoring what's realistic or not, is annoying for gameplay. If you're like, oh, now I'm just a passenger. So it reduces that, but on the counter side, it does feel a little bit more. It's a little bit initially sluggish. Not when the tires are cold, but I mean in terms of turning, it's initially a bit sluggish to sort of get that initial movement and grip. It almost feels as if there's like a sort of maybe like a tire carcass type action. You could think of it like that. Mm-hmm. Which I know some real world drivers are like, oh, that's not realistic. But I don't care. It is what it is. So it's a little bit initially sluggish. And you might get a little bit more force feedback information from it because it seems to have a little bit more give to it in general. So, I mean, it's hard to tell with the Skippy because it's got road tires on it and it's a sloppy, right. It's a bathtub with wheels anyway. But I think it's in the right. In general, I think it makes it more fun to drive with. That it'll be interesting to see what those tires, that tire model, that approach is like on other vehicles in iRacing. I think, but yeah, I'm still not a big fan of iRacing. I want like I really like AC force feedback and R Factor 2 specific cars in R Factor 2 force feedback and Automobilista force feedback. I'm all about the force feedback. I just need information. So, no, I mean, that's what I really want, and then I want nice handling and stuff. But I quite like the handling in general in iRacing. I think it's the force feedback and some aspects of the tires. But
I'm glad you
you've asked another question.
I'm glad you focused so much on force feedback, because we're going to come back to that full circle in today's conversation.
Just a second here. Scuderia gave us a donation, so thank you very much.
Yeah,
it's much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Scuderia.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shaun and I have similar feelings about the Skippy with the tire model. I felt like it was the front end was kind of numb, like you could feel it, but anything coming through the wheel, there was not a whole lot there. It just was kind of there. It was either
it's got like a slop
heavy.
to it.
Yeah, it just felt soft, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So I apparently there's, it went the wrong direction for what the car's supposed to do, because I don't, and admittedly, we went over this, so I'm not going to hammer this into the ground, but I didn't spend 4 hours with the Skippy and like try everything to break the car. I just, played with it for about that. Don't take that out of context. I ran the car for about half an hour, and
it only takes Billy half an hour.
It's on a bad day. So the car just felt more natural to me. Again, I know that when you steer the thing almost full lock and you just plant your foot, apparently it just hooks right around the corner. So that's obviously not right. I would have liked to seen, like I said, a couple other variations, a tin top, and maybe another, like a GT3 car, because I am not a fan of the way the GT3 cars drive in iRacing. They feel very unnatural to me. They have like this point where they're just kind of there. So I would have liked to have had just a couple different instances just to compare, because like you said, it's a street tire. It's a very unique car in the game. There's nothing else that runs like that car. So that would have been nice to have something else.
Agreed. So what'd you drive, Billy?
Oh, what did I drive? I had a couple of abandoned videos again.
James.
Have to fire that AI.
I'm telling you, well, I tried to do IndyCar at Circuit of the Americas, and I tried a couple different sims, and it just not good. Just didn't feel good. And I, rather than like rant and rave about something, I was just like, no, this is just not good. So then I did a stock car video in R Factor 2 around Martinsville, which was fun. The Martinsville version that's available in the workshop is it's good enough. How about that? It's not super accurate, but it's good enough. And then I decided for whatever reason to go on to iRacing and try a sprint car race. I haven't run an official dirt race in almost 2 years, like basically since it first came out. Even though I've run leagues and stuff like that, I haven't run an official race. So took the time, made a setup for qualifying heat in a main at Charlotte, the 360 wing car. And I'm going to give spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, look away and plug your ears for 5 seconds.
Earmuffs.
I did end up winning that one. I TQ'd, won the heat, and won the main. So that worked. But I was in heat, or I was in split 2, because I haven't run that many races. And what I don't understand is they have a heat race system with like a B main or a constellation race or last chance qualifier to get to the A main. And there were 35 of us that registered. I don't understand why all 35 of us weren't in the race, because the first split had about probably 5 or 6 guys that probably could have kicked my ass. And I had a couple guys behind me that were really quick. I would have preferred everybody be together so I could have learned. Like I want to learn when I'm not as fast as the other guys. And I preferred racing with faster people because it's just going to make me faster. And they have a system in place that lets you run everybody together, but they won't let you run together. So it's a maximum of 22 cars in a room. So it got split into 18 and 17. I was like, I would have preferred to get my ass kicked and learn, even though it was a fun race. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird like that. I'd rather learn.
So where did that put you in the top of the second split?
I would have qualified, I think, 4th or 5th. The races aren't comparable because we had 4 cautions, they had 2. So I'm guessing I would have been 5th to 7th, maybe, depending on how things would have played out. Because they had some really fast guys in that first split.
It's respectable.
So, yeah, I think that's what I did. I got to edit that and get that out today.
Nice.
How about you, Brandon?
Myself, I've been practicing for Nords because I am horrible at that track. I don't have a bazillion laps there. And I had somebody in the community reach out to me. They're a Assetto Corsa modder, and reached out to me about some cars that they are building and sent them over to me to give my impression on them. So I've been checking those out, and yeah, that's about it. Watching James build Legos and
That's right.
all sorts of different stuff. So yeah, it's been a good week. Shaun, what have you been up to?
Oh, this week has been insane. Nords, I suck. I'm good.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I'm good for. I'm up to 85% of the track knowledge, 15% crash. So that's been a challenge. Been doing final testing on the GS5G seat, which means that I've been in rally cars, open wheeled, road course, tin top, oval. I've been just trying to throw every scenario and every sim at it. So it's been a cool week for me because I've been able to bounce around and play R Factor, Assetto, Dirt Rally, iRacing, and just been all over the place and done a lot of just playing, kind of like going to like a buffet, and instead of eating like a whole entree, I'm just taking a little bit of this, and just have this really cool plate full of sim racing going on. That's been my week. It's been a fun week, and now we have the patron race tomorrow, which should be fun for the guys, and then we have weekend. This weekend's all about Nords. I mean, this will be the week where I just focus everything on one track, one race for the whole weekend, really, for that, for the most part.
I watched the stream that you did. What was it? Wednesday? For the hot lap hump day.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I was gonna say, you said you had a little boo boo.
Yeah, how's your thumb?
Your hand?
Oh, it is amazing. It still hurts. I mean, I really racked my thumb. In real life, you're not supposed to put your thumbs around the wheel because in a collision, it will yank the wheel and break your thumbs. And my wheel literally did that to me. It didn't break it, but I mean, all night long, I was getting more and more sore. And it was going not just from the thumb, but into the arm because I had a lot of force feedback turned up, and old Monza was just doing this to the wheel. I mean, it was just like
Shaun the saw cold.
I was back to saw. I was totally back to the saw. And yeah, it wore me out. But I would say it was one of my better nights, one of my better days. I was running against some big names and holding my own quite well. So I had a great event. It was a lot of fun. We were running the 2013 car tomorrow at the Monza combined track.
I saw, yeah.
You
guys had your hands full.
It was nuts. I mean, for 15 minutes, I couldn't complete a lap. I just understanding how much you had to slow that car down to turn was pretty insane, but a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I think just last week I was saying the harder you make it, the better I seem to do. And this is one of those examples. It was a really difficult car to drive. And
you need the pressure.
Yeah.
Shaun under pressure.
I do. I deal with that pressure.
That's where us boldies can excel under pressure because we've got the heat sink ability to dissipate the pressure. All the people in there are like, oh no, the pressure, I'm overheating. And we're just there, cool, chilling out, breeze over the forehead. It's all good. Oh, I should have told people that. That's a top secret boldy tip there.
Yep. Shaving my head is now next on the list.
The razors. Yeah.
Every sim racer should shave their head immediately.
Wow.
All right,
so become a legion of you guys then.
I know we have a lot of things we want to talk to James about, or a few things we want to get into great detail. So there is a little bit of sim racing news to kind of blow through really quickly. So I think I'll go ahead and get things going here. Starting things off with the Assetto Corsa Competizione. They did do a small update, so this isn't part of that whole timeline launch rollout that they've been doing. But this is in regards to VR. So a while back, they had those commands, like if you were going to start it, doing the -VR on Steam command for launch. Apparently now it has 3 different launch modes: normal, non-VR, in Oculus VR mode, or in Steam VR mode. So there's more on that, and you can go find that through, any of their media outlets like Facebook, Twitter, or any of that. No more needing to do the -VR command, though. You can just go right to VR in Assetto Corsa Competizione. So, Brandon,
How nice.
Isn't that good? You like that, huh, Brandon?
Yeah, it's nice that it gives you the options, because I personally hate when the games have to have you do that, and then it forces it into VR mode. Well, if you need to go in and do a quick adjustment or look at something, then you got to start up your Oculus Home and put on the headset, and it's just a bunch of rigmarole.
Best thing would be if they do what you can do with Content Manager and some of the other I think it works with Project Cars 2. It might work with some of the sims where the VR version launches to separate graphical settings, because when you're playing in VR, you need to turn graphics down to get the performance. When you're playing in 2D, you can turn everything up. So that'd be awesome. Kudos! Come on, kudos,
Don't
boys!
you hit that button. It's like the bat phone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. Before we go on, just to note, this is obviously episode 14. And if you guys have questions, if we can get to them for any of us, just type in Q&A and then your question, and we'll get them. And if we can get to them, hopefully don't keep GM here way past his bedtime.
It's only 4 p.m. We're good.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're good.
All right. I didn't know if you needed to take a midday nap or what.
Oh, no, that's nice. I've got my tea. Once I'll have another cup of tea and a little nap. Dream of life.
So anyway, Q&A and then the question. And also, it's either this week or next week. I'm working on it. Because of your guys' donations and support, we are going to go with also audio version for podcasts. So it'll be on SoundCloud, iTunes, iTunes.
The deep voice illusion collapses live. Hello, Billy Strange here. Killian Billy.
I just want everybody to love me.
So anyway, we're going to have those on, hopefully, your favorite podcast services. We'll make an announcement when that's actually done. But again, thanks to you guys for the support and the donations, because it does cost a little money to get that out there. So that's, I guess, newsworthy.
Yes, I wish I had a graphic for that.
And then on to R Factor 2. We've got the big Sebring 12-hour event this weekend. That'll be nice to watch. And they're doing a giveaway, not only for drivers, but we haven't forgotten about our viewers. Win an incredible Fanatec Podium Direct Drive Wheel or Fanatec vouchers. Winners will be announced during the live broadcast. So if you're looking for something from, let's see, Fanatec.
Yes.
Then tune in.
There you go.
Make sure you're there.
That would be cool. I'll take a free podium.
Me too.
Mitchie,
I would not turn it away.
Mitchie is streaming that race, so Avid Chronic Racing is actually in that. I mean, Team Redline has like 2 super teams running. A few of the big, huge eSport teams are in that one. Anyway, Avid Chronic's in there, and he'll be streaming on this channel. So our patron race is actually going to be on the crew channel, because I think that starts at 3 a.m. tonight, my time, and runs till 3 p.m. tomorrow. Anyway, that's going to be a crazy race. It's going to be like a alien-only endurance race. It's awesome.
Yeah, going to have a lot of big names in it. It should be, hopefully, it's a good race to watch.
And win a podium. 3 a.m., though, that's kind of brutal. I don't know what time they're doing that. I hope I can tune in more like 8 a.m.
Yeah, hopefully you can tune in not at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I'm not in the race. I don't have to wake up.
You're on the wrong continent, Sean. You need to move.
I'm
to the...
Apparently, we're all on the wrong continent.
People tell me that all the time. All the time, people tell me that. But, with all that crazy, depressing news, I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but you can enjoy rain clouds and cold weather. But there's no poisonous animals. And You could just be miserable every day, and then it's fantastic. It'd be great.
That
Well,
weather
my weather's been schizophrenic up here. So yesterday it was nice and warm. Today it's cloudy and raining.
That weather James described is totally sim racing weather, though, right?
Well,
Stay
there you
indoors,
go.
never leave.
The British are perfectly evolved for sim racing.
Develop a pale complexion.
Millennia of poor weather.
Oh my god! All right.
Perfect.
The Verge has an article talking about the new HP Reverb headset, and I only have this graphic, and I'm not even trying to single this one out because I specifically talked about this one on Wednesday. It's more just how much is coming out of GDC with VR stuff. I have been for a long time, James, you don't know my story on this one, but like I've loved VR, but I've never brought it on the show for two reasons. One, I was waiting for the next gen, and two, for the way I did my show, VR wasn't going to work. But I love VR. But for me to personally jump to it, I've been waiting. And then it went on sale, and I bought an Oculus. And I'm so glad I stopped waiting because I love VR. It's awesome. But at the same time, I've been waiting on the next gen. So GDC.
I think everyone is really, especially for sim racing. It's just the quality's not. It's usable. It works fine. It's more immersive than screens, but it's not ideal. It's like how like if you had a monitor back in the day. Until we got to like 25-inch or plus with the CRTs, it's kind of in that infant stages, isn't it? So it's still it's taking its time.
People don't realize, like back in the days of CRT, and this kind of touches upon a topic we're going to talk about later, but a 17 was the normal, a 17-inch CRT. If you had like a 19-inch, you were considered cool. And I remember when I spent like a month's savings to buy a 21, and I was like king of the world, I like DiCaprio,
Was it a Sony Trinitron?
Yes, it was. It had little birds on it.
There's that YouTube channel,
or a ViewSonic.
Technology Connections YouTube channel. It's really good. It explains how all the stuff works really nicely. It's really worth watching. But yeah, I remember the CRTs. Did you ever go to like LAN parties where you'd be like, this is in late 90s, early 2000s, you're like, I'm just getting my CRT out of the boot, carrying the PC, and then those backpacks for the PCs, you're like, we're gonna have so much fun.
I even did it with the PS2. For Gran Turismo 3, you could get that little FireWire hub, and so we literally would have, probably for 2 years, about once every other month, we would all go to somebody's house, 6 monitors, 6 PS2s, and we would do like eliminations and round robin rotation. It was great. I mean,
it was really good fun.
The CRT, but it was fun.
Well, you would always just play games at those. It wouldn't be that one person would happen to work in IT and have a massive file server and everybody would be taking files off them. That didn't happen at all. It was all completely above board, and it was all about gaming. 100% about gaming.
I'm sure it was.
Yep, good old days. So anyway, but we are actually, would you say that what we're seeing, like in this case, the Reverb, you're talking 2160 by 2160, are we to the point where we can call what we're seeing on the horizon the next gen, or is this like a 1.5 update to where we had? Because again, like you said, it's usable but not ideal, perhaps.
I think it's still. It's kind of weird with VR, because the problem with VR is we've got in reality, in terms of mass consumer VR. VR actually being successful and actually making sense, it has to be separate from PC. So like the Oculus Quest, that is VR. That's basically what VR is. It's separate and augmented reality. It's separate from PCs. It doesn't make sense being attached to PC. On the professional and the specific sim racing and flight sim side, it's a totally separate ballpark again. So for our side, it's more we just want higher resolution panels, really. The actual raw tracking, everything else is fine. The latency, that's all fine. We just need wider field of view and higher res panels. And it's frustratingly, the Oculus S, is it the Oculus Rift S? I think that's the new one.
Correct. Yep.
It's not that much of a bump. It's more just like they've taken the Quest stuff and put it in their thing. So if you're going to do the PC thing, it's like, well, no one cares. No one on the hardcore sim side.
Right.
They want higher resolution and wider field of view. And it's like, why Facebook have just gone, we don't care. And some people saying why certain people left Facebook is because of that they're not pushing the absolute top possible potential. But then, so where Facebook are obviously focusing on the Quest now, that's where the money is. It's where VR expansion is. I think you will see these other headsets possibly step into the more sort of niche or very specific sim racing industry side of it. So HTC are picking it up a bit. I'm really interested to see what the Valve VR headset is. That's rumored because they've got their hand controllers. They're working on 3 VR games, and Valve are taking VR seriously. But no, because Valve are bloody Valve, no one knows what's going on. They 2016, they were like, oh, we've got VR games as well. We were showing off next year. They're like, no, it didn't happen. So you just don't know.
And their announcement at GDC was nothing more than, oh, tune in, we're going to tell you soon. That was their big GDC announcement on their VR stuff.
But the thing, that's what's annoying with Valve, because whatever they do, apart from the stupid card game, whatever they do is going to be absolutely amazing. When they like Portal, Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, Steam as a platform, the actual stuff they've done to the Source engine, Steam on the whole, their general corporate structure, how they're supporting developers with the servers and the anti-cheat, and all the stuff they're doing is amazing when it actually gets out there. But until it's out there, you kind of just sat there waiting. You just don't know. So, oh dear, Valve it's just torture. But so we were just waiting, I guess.
Do you guys think that we're going to get dedicated people to sim racing like Wheels for VR? Instead of these more overarching companies that are trying to develop VR for all these, admittedly, we're a small market. So do you think somebody's ever going to, or they'll make a division for specifically sim racing like we have Wheels? Will it get to the point where it starts to splinter off and you'll have the commercial Facebook, doctors use this kind of VR, and then you're going to have more for flight sims and sim racing? Here's a company that makes a VR headset that actually works with what we want it, or is what we want it to be like.
Right, I think on the PC side, this is the separation, say, with the Quest and the standalone VR, where it'll be each company doing their very specific store, closed ecosystem, walled garden. On the PC side, I think it's becoming clear that VR headsets are very much becoming like monitors. So it'll just be the case of you going, I've got a PC. Which monitor, but which VR headset will I buy for my simulators? I don't think you'll have. I mean, Thrustmaster or Fanatec or whoever could potentially do some deal, but I don't think they would need to, or they would bother. It will just be you would just be like, well, I like driving sims. My priority is high frame rate, high resolution, and field of view. So I'll get that headset. And I think you're starting to see that now anyway with these like Windows mixed reality headsets and the way that Steam VR works. You'll just pick the headset that with the amount of money you've got that's best for the specific application that you want. And it's the same with the business side, with what HTC are doing with their sort of a lot of industry are using it for the various uses, the professional uses of VR. Those industries they're going with the HTC Vive and the Vive Pro because at the moment, with the way the Lighthouse tracker works and everything, those are the best headsets for that application. But as soon as another company comes in with a comparable headset, then they'll just pick what's best. It's exactly like monitors, basically.
Sure.
That's the way it's going on the PC side.
I could see it being where somebody gets involved with, and maybe there's a modded, whether it be third-party mod or actually a model made. So like with McLaren working with Vive as much as they are, we've already seen.
Well, so you've got that McLaren Vive Pro was basically a branding partnership, partly for the McLaren Shadow thing, and it was just a Vive Pro with McLaren branding on it, but they didn't really take it any further.
But I could see in the future, maybe not exactly that one, because maybe that one already hit a roadblock or a dead end, but where a company does go and say, look, so like the new one with the 2160, maybe, but someone says, hey, you know what, for sim racing application, I don't really need as much of that height. I need to give that feeling of it being narrower so that it can even appear to give you a more field of view. Whether it be a change in lenses or a change in shape, maybe it be a vignette type shape so it feels like you're actually in a helmet. And
possibly.
But maybe it only is a third-party mod. Maybe there's some sim racer out there who's an optical whiz, is like, these lenses they use are great for first person and this, but if you change these lenses out, this is going to be way better for sim racing. I mean, I don't know enough about the subject. I could just see something being developed from our community for VR, in other words, just like we've done with
Yeah,
so many other products.
I would say it's the reason why I say that's potentially unlikely is just because the sheer complexity of just having the way the panels have to be driven, the way the lenses have to work with them, the form factor, the everything is so vastly complicated and so costly to get everything set up just to make a VR headset. All the companies will probably be like, right, if we produce this headset, are we likely to sell this to the widest group of people in that price bracket? And I think that's what the consideration would be.
Oh,
but it would be cool.
It'll be a cardboard model.
Yeah, it'd be cool though if we did get like a VR, like a specific sim racing headset.
Yeah, I agree. That would be good. The thing that excited me about the news and the products that were announced at GDC was that we do have companies like HP and Pimax, and those guys are still pushing the boundaries of the tech to see what we can get up to. And I know it's pretty discounted as far as Oculus, 1.2 or just kind of a slight warm over, but there's some things that they did to that headset that I think really show the direction that they're going as a company. And it's more of a refinement headset where they do have the different tracking now, the pass-through camera. The big thing for me that they announced is that they changed the resolution on the actual screen, and then they changed the hertz of that panel, so it'll still run from what they were explaining like a regular Oculus, but you'll have the higher resolutions because they went from the 90 hertz down to the 80 hertz.
That's weird though that they made. The thing is, 90 hertz was already a compromise in terms of it needs to be 120 hertz for pretty much everybody when they've done studies on this to not get motion sickness from from sat still. The panels themselves, in terms of like the brain's capacity to notice that something's off, 120 hertz is really the baseline. But then if you're like, okay, well, we can hit 90% of people or 80% of users, 90 hertz is fine. It's kind of weird for them to go to drop to 80 hertz with that. It's a really strange choice. I mean, obviously they say it means that you can run it. Well, actually, I think they've mostly done it so that they can not have to change the specs on any of the software or anything and go, well, it still works. It's just really weird that the Oculus S stuff is just really strange. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Sorry. It's just really strange.
Really hard. I thought you were going into that part of your brain
I've got a camera up here.
Camera two.
It's lit up because it's on my stream PC. But yeah, the Oculus stuff is really strange, but with Facebook, it makes sense. If you just think of Facebook, it's like Quest, standalone VR. That's where the users are, and that's where VR makes sense. I mean, you just put a device on your head, like it's totally standalone. It's like a mobile phone, totally standalone, and put it on your head, and you've got an infinite virtual world. That is mind blowing. The moment you have to plug a headset into a PC, it's like, well, unless you're doing it for work or simulation, it's like, well, it kind of ruins the biggest selling point of VR and the biggest justification for putting stupid stuff on your head.
Right.
If it does all that other stuff, it makes it okay. But yeah, well, it's early days. I mean, it's exciting though. That's what's cool with VR. We had a big gap with like technology where nothing seems to happen with games. It's like, well, the games look slightly nicer. We've got better reflections and things, or the resolution's gone higher. But VR is like such a monumental jump in terms of everything. I think it keeps things exciting. So I'm happy that things are kind of muddling along and we're still working out what's the best way to do things and what will work. And so I think it's good. Well, keeps this fresh.
We're saying that about sim racing in general across the board all the time, because when you look at the elite or the hardcore side of sim racing, when you get into like the big sims and not the more arcadey titles even, it's like, well, most of the stuff is out there being built for the masses. They want the millions, the tens of millions of people, whether it be hardware or software. And when you start looking at the more hardcore, the more specific you get in a hobby like ours, you get away from the mainstream, and then products aren't going to be developed for us unless they're coming literally from our industry. Because if you're building something specific for sim racing, you look at this as a big market, sure, we're a niche of gaming, whatever. But if you're even like Gran Turismo or Forza level, you're not thinking of it in those same terms. You're thinking being at the end of the aisle for sale for moms to buy for their kids, essentially, and that's where your products really, if you're trying to make money in this world, that's where you have to be targeting. And right now, that is where, and if we want more out of VR, we might be the tag-alongs, because we might be able to use this great technology that's being built for other masses. So if Quest, with or without what we want, if it can sell in the millions instead of the hundreds of thousands, then they're going to continue development. It's going to continue to get bigger and better, more supported titles, push the graph, and then maybe the next gen will trickle down to something where we're just blown minds because it works so perfectly for sim racing. Maybe, in my opinion, it works better for sim racing and flight sim than anything else you can do with VR. It's just such a natural, like, you don't need the tracking, of moving around because you're strapped into a car or you're strapped into so now all the motion, everything you do is so natural with the helmet. They don't have to design any walking around or any goofy other tactics to make it work. It just works. So again, we're a great application for it, but we will always be just riding the coattails.
We're just picking up the breadcrumbs. Please,
yeah.
please, can I have some stuff for my Sims,
A little
please?
scrap for me, please.
Sneaking along. Oh dear.
So, all right, what else do we have to talk about? Oh, Gran Turismo
let's
had some
see.
stuff.
Yeah, that's it for the news. The esports stuff. I did watch the FIA, the Nations Cup. Well, the two races they had for Gran Turismo, and what was it? The Nations Cup and the Manufacturers Cup. I think that's how it goes.
Yes.
So you guys didn't watch it, correct? Is that what we said before?
Yeah, I meant to. It was on my radar.
Good intentions. I was pretty impressed with how things went. I think that's probably one of the best, not only productions I've seen, but the racing from an overall standpoint was really, really good. They had a couple rough spots, which reminds you of typical multiplayer races, but for the most part, that's probably one of the most entertaining races, because they had several races for each in different class of cars, different tracks. That was probably the most entertaining I won't say the most, but one of the most entertaining races I have seen, period, for any sort of live stream or anything like that. It was really, really good. It was exciting. It was good.
Was it the quality of driving? Was it the production? What or was it just...
It was all of the above. They changed their production a little bit. So now they had Jimmy, and I apologize, I forgot the other guy's name, but they had Jimmy and the other guy. Oh, that's going to be so bad. I forgot his name.
Hi guys, Jimmy here, but my other guy doesn't exist.
But the bad thing is I know his name and I cannot think of it. I'm having a complete brain freeze. But they had them in like their own, more of a broadcasting situation, not in this like little hole behind everybody. They were more up on a stage. They were actually more like a broadcast. And so when I compare it to other things, like I've seen some of the Forza competitions, we've seen the F1 2018, and F1 2018 did really well. I think their production value was really good.
That was the 2018 event was like, it was really nicely put together, like the actual stuff that's there. But yeah, it's hard. I see it's really hard for them to like. You've got people sat in simulators, and how do you like put it together with commentators in a way that really works? Like some of the GT stuff seems to be a good sort of compromise, but
yeah, I don't know
how to make it compelling,
right? I'm not sure how differently they're approaching it. It just GT this past one, not so much last year's. Last year's were good, but this one in particular just seemed to just work better. And it was much more, it was enjoyable. I actually watched it and wasn't like, God, I got to get through this. It was actually like they were having really good races. I mean, there were some really, really exciting races. And I think maybe part of it is the races, for as much as the more true to life PC side of me / real life side of me says, I want longer races and I want, Gran Turismo isn't as sophisticated in their physics department on a console as a PC, but it's not bad. And they look, the game itself looks amazing, so that helps. And then the quality of driving that they typically had was really good. I mean, they had some scuffles.
If it's racing, like if you've got racing that's compelling racing, it's compelling racing. It doesn't really matter what it's in. That's the thing. And I think
they did a good job of manufacturing that, is what I'm trying to say.
One of the mistakes that I've seen made with a lot of the sim racing coverage on these esporty type things is they come across as being disingenuous because they almost pretend as if they're real world racing and it's not real world racing. As long as you're honest, you're like, it's sim racing or it's gaming racing. That's cool. That's fine. You don't have to pretend it's real world racing. You've still got real people sat there that have wasted their entire lives playing computer games too much, but they've sat there. They're really focused. They're amazing at what they're doing. You're seeing real racecraft. So when the commentators focus on the racecraft, which does apply to real world as well, it's compelling because you're like, oh, that's interesting. It's racecraft and it's racing. Who's going to win? You know, and then you've got all the other aspects to it, and it's nicely edited, nicely done with the commentary, all done above board, and I say being genuine, not being disingenuous. And I mean, I've not seen the recent one you're referring to with the GT sports stuff, but some of the GT stuff, it doesn't come across as disingenuous or like it's cheating. It comes across as they're like, this is GT, this is Gran Turismo, and these are the best people in
its own
it.
environment. It is,
yeah,
it is its own separate thing.
These are the best people at this, and so that I don't want to. I probably derailed you here, but
our show is called Derailing.
but I think that's one of the interesting, because I've been trying to follow a lot of the esports stuff recently in terms of behind the scene things and the general structure of it. The problem obviously is you've got like the simulators, decent sims like R Factor 2, iRacing AC, what have you, but they don't have the audience there, the entrenched audience for a specific game. And you have the problem that each of these sims they're copying reality, but they're also their own individual game. So with the GT, with Gran Turismo, the thing is, it's like as an item itself, it's its own thing that has its own audience, own little package, and so it's not like diluted. It's just it's going out to that user base, which keeps it all very simple. And you'll notice with all other successful esports, it's like, well, Counter-Strike is Counter-Strike players, people that watch Counter-Strike, they're watching Counter-Strike. Dota is people that like playing Dota. Rocket League is people that like playing Rocket League. Each game though driving simulators are all kind of real world driving simulators, each one is still its own game. So it's almost as if each one is its separate esport, despite them all being driving simulators. So it just gets really confusing and sort of convoluted in terms of having something that will go out to an audience, get the viewers, also be realistic enough for it to be realistic racing, to get that marketing crossover for real world stuff. It's really interesting how it's moving out. But I do think GT F1 2018, they're doing a really good job with it, but I think GT has done a better job in general. But I think they've got the bigger audience there naturally within the game. I think that's what it comes down to.
I think that's a big part of it, and I think what you said is really relevant. That for the most part, whether you're a viewer or you're a competitor, people do kind of align with one game or one sim in many cases. And, you probably, as much as, you're talking millions of players in Forza and Gran Turismo, there might not be that much crossover in the eSport viewership.
Yeah, with the crossover point, having spoke to quite a few of these people doing the eSport stuff and some of the teams, is that they specifically have people that only play iRacing, and they're only going to be champions in iRacing, only going to be champions in Forza, they're only going to be champions in GT, because there's enough difference between the physics in these games that, sure, they're all driving games. There's enough difference that to be the very best in each of those games, you have to be a very dedicated person for that specific title. So they are essentially different sports, although they're all driving games.
Sure.
So it's a very difficult, it's an awkward situation for trying to have a singular esports package that can then work as a promotion vehicle as well as an esports vehicle and be cohesive. It's all very awkward. I've not worked out in my head how they would do it, and I don't think the industry with the esports has quite worked out. It's still just muddling along, but it's growing and it seems to be making money and working. But yeah.
Well, and that brings up a topic we've touched on before I circle back around to the GT Sport race, is that you've only got so many people that do this. And for those of us that aren't an esports competitor, you start dividing up your audience base. And so there's only so many of us to pull from. And so how many different directions can we go to support all of these esports titles anyways? Well, somebody's going to get left in the dust. And right now with the production value and there's a difference when you see guys competing online, people, we're gender neutral.
Sexism from Billy there.
How dare you, Billy?
But we see this, the amount of people that are available, and GT Sport just happens to have everybody in one location. So there were points that you could see that these guys were really getting frustrated with themselves. Like one guy just basically in the Nations Cup, in the last chance, well, I'll call it the last qualifier, he completely blew it into turn 1 at Suzuka. Just drove right off the track. And you could just see him. They had a camera in his face and he just was like, just one of those like, I can't believe I did that. And likewise, the guy that won it was so excited. I mean, these guys actually had a little bit of personality to them, which really helped. And that's what Shaun and I have talked about before, is getting these guys to have a personality, not just be so stoic and just like, I won. Yay. These guys were excited. I mean, the one guy was literally getting, misty-eyed when he's up on the podium and he's singing the national anthem for his country. And it's just like, it was cool to have everybody in one location, where unfortunately, like an iRacing or an R Factor 2 or something, not everybody's together. So you missed a little bit of that human element that goes along with it that makes these different stories. And I think it's different when even though we're all racing together, it's different when you sit next to somebody versus isolated in your own room or what have you.
Sure.
So they had live stewards that were making calls and giving warnings on the spot. That is another thing that I feel like gets lost in a lot of esports stuff, that I don't understand why we have these big esports races and there's some of them don't have live stewards to make those calls. Right. So the fact is, it was exciting because if these guys started rubbing on each other left and right, banging doors, it wasn't that big of a deal. But you knew that if they really started pushing it too far, they were going to get called on it. They got a warning. Some guys got penalties. Like it was good officiating. It was good racing. It was just an overall good package. I think they've set the benchmark for all other sim racing esports per se to follow.
Well, like you said, look at the group of guys. So, if you scroll through like the pictures or the videos, it's like every other, the guys are all like, all ear to ear smiles. And, here, I'll do a very rare
And I don't
thing.
know if they were coached. I don't know if they told them, be excited or whatever. But even if they did, it worked. Yeah, it was better.
And here's my impression of Bono Hui winning Visa Vegas $1 million race.
It's because he's in the zone though. He's always thinking about the lines. Right. He doesn't stop. He's just in the zone constantly.
He's a machine. He's a nice guy. I don't even mean to give him a hard time, but he's not he's not very exuberant. He's not very...
Well, what you need, though, is because obviously in real world motorsport back in the day, a lot of people, I mean, you shouldn't need someone. If the objective is the competition, you shouldn't need someone to be a delight or personality. They just need to be good at what they're doing. If the competition is to be the fastest, then you can't really expect anything else from them, or they shouldn't need it. But what you need is like 80s F1, where if they have a contact together, and you can have a little pit lane set up, and then if they're all in the same room, then they can have a little punch up, and that that gets some media coverage. It's exciting. Yeah, mix it up a bit. That's what you need, because you'd have quiet drivers in real life. but
Well,
they
yeah.
get a strap on and it's exciting.
Yeah.
So
But with that
Perfect is
said,
Nicky Lauda and James Hunt, right? They do that, the whole movie and everything. But I mean, one's reserved, one's outlandish, and everything. And you need those dynamics. If everybody's the same way, then it becomes very stale. And I'm not saying people should be disingenuous. All I'm saying is that
you want to encourage a bit.
It's okay to be you. It's okay. You don't have to be like, nobody will take me serious if I'm not serious. Like, it's okay to just be yourself while you're driving. And if you have a mess up, like, it's okay to show emotion. Because I know in the real race car, I've done that. You sit there and you go, you idiot. What are you, damn it.
But with that said, name me a single long distance jumper from the '88 Olympics. And there's only one that will come to mind, right?
What that British one that used to keep falling off?
Come on, he's your national hero, isn't he, James? Eddie the Eagle. Eddie the Eagle. Name me another ski jumper, period. So I mean, the personality does go a long way.
Britain, best at failing. Woo! Bring it on. It's great.
It's so exciting when you talk. Real quick, Spatial, thank you so much for the donation.
Yes, thank you, Spatial.
That's very funny. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought they did a really, really good job with the GT Sport, and I'm actually looking forward to the next one that they have. Like, I will be watching it. I thought it was good.
Well, that's good.
Before you move on, the thing with GT Sport, and this is the thing, it's easy as sim race to be like, oh, it's GT Sport, and the handling is a little bit sloppy. V-Sync permanently, you can't turn that off, so it's got input delay built into it, which is absurd. But as an esports thing, anyway, ignoring that. The point is, PlayStation 2 with GT Sport, you can pick up for 200 quid, probably less now, second-hand or whatever, plug it in your TV. It works well with the gamepad. It's faster with the steering wheel. Forza is actually faster with the gamepad than the steering wheel. So they force people to use steering wheels. But GT Sport, faster with the wheel, works with the gamepad. It's accessible. It's got the online ranking. They do run the same bloody 3 things each week, which is stupid. Like, they need to mix it up a bit. There's a lot of GT fans getting really annoyed with doing the same constant thing. But you basically got an iRacing-like structure on something that's very cheap that most people in the world can afford. You can get into it. You've got the potential of the esports thing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's actually really good, and it's easy to sort of poo-poo it as a sim racer because the physics clearly aren't up to the same level as AC iRacing.
And that's the dichotomy between the two.
Yeah, our sims, they're not my sims. The sims we play could learn so much from it. It's like, oh my God, how has it taken so long for people to why can't everyone just rip off GT Sport and iRacing? Because it's so obvious. That's what you need. Just rip it off.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so it does so much so well. You really have to give credit to them with Polyphony Digital. Absolutely amazing, really, all things considered. Promo for Polyphony there. Just thought I'd get that in there.
Thanks to Mike for the donation, fueling the stream. Biscuits for everybody.
Biscuit.
I've only got a donut.
We got one donut. And then, Izzy, money for Shaun and James' hair transplant.
I got Shaun above me.
I get his hair and he gets mine. That's not going to do shit.
Oh, wow. Is that like wife swap? So, yeah, it's impressive what they did. I mean, they also had other things that I appreciate as maybe a more serious sim racer is they're using wheels where some competitions, I'm not going to name which ones, use a gamepad. So they're using they're using wheels, and the monitors are or TVs, whichever they're using, are basically in the correct position. They're not 3 miles away from them. So they did things that as a sim racer, even though, like I said, the dichotomy is, part of me says, man, I wish this was a little more PC oriented. Like, I wish we could have something like this. But on the other hand, it's still good for the genre as a whole. And it's not like it's a super arcade game. And they were doing things to make it more appealing for a car person, because that's what they're driving. The only thing I don't really care for is when they get into the fantasy vehicles, those super swoopy, production formula looking cars. They use the Red Bull car. You know which one I'm talking about? I forget the nomenclature on the car. And they change it to like a V12 in the car. So these guys really had to hang on to it. So the racing was good, but the car kind of takes me out of it a little bit, just because I'm like, I don't really identify with this, but okay, because it's more like, for lack of a better term, F-Zero going around the track, which in its own right could be entertaining. but I really enjoyed a lot of the other stuff where they were using street cars and then they were using GT3 cars. They did a rally that I thought was actually really good. They had some door banging and stuff. I thought it was actually a really good, even though the rally in GT Sport is not great in my opinion, they did a good job making it look like a lot of fun. So yeah.
James, how do you feel about the whole esport? I mean, you got two sides of the coin where you got some of them, they're online competitions. Everyone's at home in their privacy of their home, potentially cheating even, using whatever equipment they want, versus when you get in person like this Gran Turismo event, everyone's on the supplied hardware. You know,
well, I need the direct drive wheel if I'm ever to be successful to bail me out all the time. I need that self-aligning, but yeah.
And that's kind of fair. The other thing is, as a professional sim racer, you also might have a sponsor. So all of a sudden, you're sponsored by ABC, but then you go to the big competition and you're not allowed to use what is the tool of our trade. I mean,
well, and all those guys are wearing the same, sponsored by, I think it was Puma or whatever it was. So
Puma. Puma. So
it's
American.
Puma. It's not
Puma.
It's Puma.
That's not a Puma. Bit of red versus blue reference there, guys.
It's not a Puma.
Right? But yeah, what happens with the equipment though is that because of the nature of these, obviously these esports are promotional vehicles as much as they are in esports. Is they get so you have like McLaren Shadow, Logitech with the suppliers for that. So they've all got to use Logitech wheels. And with the other stuff, you'll have Thrustmaster. I think GT's using Thrustmaster might be it. F1 2018. Fanatec is the hardware supplier for that. So it's like that's why those equipments get used. So you've got the local thing there with the equipment used, and then like as you were saying before with some of the PC stuff, and if you start in the competition, people are just going to be might be using gamepads, or might be using any equipment to get into the qualifiers. So you always get that crossover there in terms of how the equipment affects it. It is an interesting one because I don't think there's any other sport where normally you will have your equipment that you use, and then you keep that equipment all the way to the finals. You might get better equipment because you've got more money or more expensive equipment, or you get sponsors, but you generally will keep to the equipment that you choose. Whereas it's interesting with the sim racing competitions, the wheels are vastly different, and they are selected for the competitions. But hopefully they all start using. If they all use direct drive in the competitions at the events, once you get to a direct drive wheel, the difference between the wheels is sort of negated because you could set it up how you want to. But the difference I could totally see if you were like an esports type person, really dedicated to a sim, the difference between a controller is huge between a wheel. But then the difference between a T300 and a G29 is massive, really. When you're talking about the margins, and not even the steering wheel, because the steering wheel is obviously not the biggest impact to lap time, but the pedals, the Thrustmaster pedals are massively different to Logitech pedals in feel and muscle memory because they're not load cell as well. So that would have a huge impact and require a huge amount of adjustment. So that is quite interesting with the hardware, but it's early days with these sports.
Well,
Those
guys are buying that hardware if they're going to compete. Those guys are getting it. So Brendan and those guys, he said they were specifically, they know what hardware is going to be used and they practice.
Well, that's it. I guess if you're going to enter something, you will buy the kit to enter it, but you would already have to know that you were taking it seriously.
And you can think about this as an iRock series, right? You get into, when they had the iRock series, you get into a car that's not yours. They just assign you a car and then away you go. You got to put pads in the seat and you've got to adjust it as close as you can get it, but you're stuck with what you got. And if you don't particularly like that type of car, well, too bad for you.
Someone in chat was just saying you should bring your own equipment. And actually, you know what? It could be really cool on the PC side. Because at the moment, the esports thing I describe it as inorganic. It is literally a big corporations and or a specific game. They're trying to promote something. They're trying to attach they want to get eyes on the products and what have you. That's a way of producing an event that gets a certain amount of viewer engagement. That's one way of doing it, and that's kind of not how real world motorsport started out, or how a lot of sports start out. A lot of them start out in the organic way, where people and a lot of esports started out in an organic way in general, where you've got people that have a hobby, they like doing stuff. So we like sim racing. Wouldn't it make sense to have an organic sim racing esports event where people do just turn up to like a leisure centre? And there's been some of these in the past, or at an event, and you turn up with all your equipment. And then that's how that event is run. I don't know how you would set that up in a way that made sense. Maybe it has to be forced through.
You would have to have sponsors, right?
Yeah.
So if Shaun was sponsored by Leo, and you were sponsored by pick any direct drive, and I was sponsored by Thrustmaster, then those companies would have to send the hardware there.
People could just turn up though, like how it used to work with how it used to work with LAN parties. Yeah, people would just turn up with all their kit,
except and then for people that are going overseas and everything. That's not.
Yeah, but you would have like the prizes would be the people would go to the LANs, and then the motivation was to meet people and hobbyists, and then you would have prizes in the competitions. So sort of bring your own sim rig competition.
Yeah, but you're only talking, traveling a little ways, not in an airplane.
Yeah, with
hundreds to maybe thousands of miles.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start a new company tomorrow. By the way, Sim Crates. So that
there we go. You shouldn't have said anything.
Damn it! Someone's gonna steal my fantastic idea for our breadcrumb-sized market here.
That's right.
Maybe sim racing will always be separate. Like maybe you'll always have to do it from your room. It's a private thing.
I was gonna say, I was looking forward to watching James pack that new P1 into an event center.
Oh no! The competition would be over by the time I finish building.
To be in the medical center.
Oh my! All right, let's finish up with some news real quick, and then move on to our topics, because we keep touching upon these subjects anyway. Last thing I have to talk about really is just a teaser video. Final Touches from Fanatec came out 2 days ago.
Final Touches?
Is that like a blinking light or just lighting? No, that's like some kind of blinking panel. James, you tried that thing out. Did it have a blinking panel on top? That's lighting.
What's this?
It's just another Final Touches video, they're calling it.
Oh, no, they were laser
etching
the top of it.
I see it.
They were writing on top of it, "This is Game of Muscles. DD1, we love you." Game of Muscles Fanatec affiliate link located in the description on his channel. That's what it was saying.
It is completely non-biased channel. No.
Completely non-biased, no promotion.
We've engraved one for him.
Shill muscle. It's all good. It's all good.
I'd like one of those laser engravers. That was kind of cool.
We could have a barcode put on our forehead. We have a logo. You can have SImpit. I love Game of Muscle.
You start and I'll follow.
Oh, no. I'm not doing any of that. Anyway, that's the last bit of news. So now I can officially switch our prod to, oh gosh, our donations. Things are going crazy on my production end here. It's okay.
A lot going on today.
So we had a couple questions to get to, didn't we, Brandon?
Yes, we did. Actually, chat's been pretty enthusiastic about wanting to talk to you guys. So I guess the first one and what seems to be the most popular is specifically for James, for Gamer Muscle. And
I know what this is going to be. Oh, God damn it.
Okay, what's it going to be?
The fish.
So what's your answer to that?
With USBs, ports, top 5 USB port video. Oh man, I don't know. One day, the top 5 USB port video will happen. It's just gonna be etched on my gravestone. Oh dear.
You got to really irritate people though. Just do 4 or 6. Don't do 5.
Yeah, no, just miss out the 5. Yeah. Thanks for that question. I wonder who that was from.
You
had several.
Long and distinguished, yeah. But yeah, so SimRacing 604, Mike wants to know is how far should developers push graphics? AMS, you could say, is suffering sales because of its last-gen graphics, but it seems like the Unreal 4 titles that are on the horizon, like ACC, are struggling. and they're pushing the limits of the GPU hardware for 60 frames a second, or your triples or VR. So, how, in your opinion, how far should developers be reaching right now for graphics and overall appearance?
Is that a question for Gamer Muscle?
That's pretty much for all of you. So if you want to tackle it first, James,
I have the answer to that one.
go right ahead.
Well, okay, let's be real about this. It's hard to make driving. It's hard to make computer games. It's even harder to make driving simulators. When a driving sim developer sits down and they're like, okay, let's make a driving sim, they basically have to choose between existing game engines. So with Automobilista, it's like they're a very small team. They're like, okay, we've had experience modding R-Factor engine, and so they built Automobilista on top of that. And that the other alternative is you go absolutely mental like Kunos, and you're like, okay, well, we want a next gen engine that works multi-platform, so we're going to take the monumental risk of developing in Unreal Engine, and we're gonna basically put a driving sim in an engine that's not designed for driving sims. And as you can see, it's taken a ton of work, because they're very talented, just to get a foundational driving sim out of that. And then of course you have stuff like with Sector 3, where obviously they've and this might be what Automobilista Reza are doing, is where you take an engine like the ISI motor engine originally, and you just keep developing it, keep adding new shavers, building it until it's your own engine, which is another common thing that developers do anyway. But it's not really a case of developers should go for better graphics. It's just a resource. It's a question of resources. At the end of the day, they're small teams. They're trying to do the best they can with the technology.
How long do you want to spend on this thing too?
Yeah, and Forza has internally probably like 60 to 100 staff. Externally for assets, they probably have like 1,000 people. It's like some absurd number of people in terms of people they contract in and out, and it's so obviously all driving simulators, they want to make them as nice looking as possible. It's nice to have good looking driving simulators, but they're all the developers are all trying to build as best looking driving game as they can with what they've got available to hand, really. So I don't know if that answered the question. It seems like Unreal exceeds the limits of today's GPU hardware. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. That it's an unfortunate aspect of Unreal at the moment, but you have to, with ACC, you kind of have to think it's more of that's a very long-term strategy for Kunos to take with that. It's probably going to be a cross-platform title for the next gen consoles, I'd have thought, especially with the focus on the ray tracing, which is probably going to be a big selling point for the Xbox, God knows what, and the PlayStation 5. That'll probably be one of the selling buzzwords, because those consoles that's going to be a thing they're putting in them as well. So really for ACC, it's really it's their initial foundational platform for them to have a multi-platform engine that they can use moving forwards, that won't be relegated as things progress and people expect more from it. But yeah, at this point in time, it is rather cumbersome, and it's not as it's not. We're used on the sim side for sims to just work really well, because we're so used. Like iRacing it's optimized amazingly. I think it looks fantastic as well. AC runs an absolute potato. So does all the sims pretty much run on slow computers, but they didn't when they first came out. Apart from Live for Speed, that always ran on a calculator perfectly. But when R-Factor 1 first came out, it was awful for the most part in terms of performance compared to other relative titles that came out. When AC was pretty good when it came out, but it came out sort of mid-cycle of where things were. But Race Room was relatively slow, but it's only because now that we've got like with 3 or 4 graphics cards ahead, that when we play these older titles, right, that they run so well. So when you're looking at something like ACC, you have to think, what's it going to run like in 2 or 3 years time, by the time that Kunos are doing ACC 2 or whatever they do with that. So yeah, so there you go. I don't know if I answered things, but I don't know. I tell a story there. Grab my muscle. Have a Werther's original.
Billy, you have anything to add to that?
I just think like James said, I think it's a matter of resources. And the problem is how long do you want these people to work on it before it ever comes out? And I want it to look nice, but I don't need it to be the most cutting edge, amazing thing ever. I care about how it drives. So that's why, I really like Automobilista. Automobilista to me is one of the best feeling sims you could drive. And it's frustrating because yes, it could look better. It does look dated compared to other sims we have now. So that is frustrating, but it doesn't really bother me all that much.
I think with Automobilista, to jump in there, I don't think it's the graphics that make it sell less. I think it's the packaging of it, and at the time point of when it came out and its interface. I don't know what it is with sim developers. Well, again, it's resources. But if you literally had Automobilista come out today, exactly the same content, tracks, everything, exactly the same as it was now, but you had an interface on it that was very easy to use, like nice and tidy, clean interface, I would probably be streaming it. If it was easy to set up servers, I'd probably be playing it.
Really, though, does the interface, I mean, we all mess with stuff all the time, whether we're messing with INI files, all this crap. Now, I don't want to, but I don't know as an interface how much that really deters some.
It's not. It's not
the majority of people.
It's not just the interface. It's more like how it's sold, packaged, and what you're buying and why you're getting into it. And like, as a consumer, when you go into absolutely nothing about it, and also the timing of it as it is now, like if you were to buy Automobilista, you're like, well, aren't they going to come out with a newer game, or what should I buy instead of it? So there's lots of nuance to it. I think when I say interface, I kind of mean the whole package. So it's like with R-Factor 2 that we say I'd change the interface,
right?
And it's the same with Sector 3's race room as well. One of the things that stops me from streaming, I really like it. I really enjoy racing in it. But what often stops streaming it is that I know I'm going to get hundreds of questions of people going, what content should I buy? What do I need? And it's like, just being able to say to people, we're playing this, buy this, jump in and drive, and you're good. There's a huge...
That's the problem with a live service game, right? I mean,
yeah.
Where do you iRacing, some of these, they're no different. Where do you go? I can't tell you how many times I get the same question with the iRacing, or like you said, the race room, or even the packs. Which one should I get?
Yeah,
I think it also really does. It's very affected by what market you're going after. So, and it even covers kind of what Billy was saying about INI files. But like, if you're Gran Turismo, Forza, even F1 2000, if you're trying to sell to the millions, and I think those companies, when they're having their board meetings, they know what their target audience is, and they should have an idea of how big that audience is. I think if you're on that level, that it's absolutely critical to your game and your success to be cutting edge on graphics, even at the expense of physics, force feedback, other things. Even look at like Gran Turismo, where, like you said, there's a built-in inherent lag in the game, but those graphics look awesome. When you get to the more hardcore side of things, I think people are willing to settle on a little less graphics in the name of the other things that we also want. And I think those millions of drivers using controllers, they're not demanding, perfect ABS, or if it doesn't have ABS, perfect lockup sensation. Versus on the sim side, people, that's as critical as graphics to most people who sim on that level. Right. In the case of Automobilista, we've covered on the show, Billy and I, it's like, it's very geographically centric to South America.
Yeah, that's a big aspect of it, I think.
Yes.
That's a huge aspect of it.
That's the biggest. I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And because the sim is great, the UI, sim racers will do whatever it takes, and we'll even go third party with Content Manager if we have to, or need it. If it needs it that badly, it'll happen. So I think, but. And then also on the PC side, when you're looking at the more simmy side, I think there's always been a yin and yang. I can't do the thing, but
Don's got all gangster on us. Gangster signs.
My gangster yin yang. So LA. But I think that they want to push graphics, but then there are limitations. They're waiting on graphics card or CPU or GPU advancements. Right now we're seeing advancements in those areas. We went from i7s to i9s. We went from 10 series to 20 series video cards. But even those video cards, some of the things aren't sorted yet. So if a game developer was trying to get ahead of the curve, I'm not even sure they could just yet, because those new video cards are still getting.
Someone just sent a donation, and they know my computer's on. It was at Full House Gaming.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had my speakers on, and they know that I'm sat next to my
That's
streaming
hilarious.
PC. Oh dear. You're lucky it
there's
wasn't
no
anything rude.
See? I files are nothing for a sim racer. They know how to do some crazy
dear.
stuff. So yeah,
Sorry about
I mean, we'll always have that yin yang though, where the sim guys, the other thing is it's kind of a kiss of death to have a game that doesn't run optimally. So you talk about like Live for Speed playing on a calculator. Well, to an extent that worked to their advantage because it meant that every single person who got it, it ran, it worked. They were able to play. It had good force feedback. You got in and you played and you're like, hey, this is a cool driving game. And that might not be the case for everything. And the more they push it, the more people they're going to get who, especially on the PC side, buy it, and then it won't run on their machine, because it's trying to be too cutting edge.
Yeah, and I don't know. To circle back around to Mike's question again, not that I think he was picking on AMS. I think he was just using it as an example. I don't know how much I care. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I find that Forza is a great example of it is a really pretty game, and I hate the way it drives. So
Have you played? You talk about Forza 7 or Forza Horizon?
7.
Because Forza, I've not played Forza 7 recently. There's apparently been a patch to the steering.
Yeah, I tried.
I know a lot of people think it's even. Well, I won't go into details, but yeah, a lot of people don't like it. But the Horizon, I feel, 4 has really got the. I played with the T300 quite a bit when it came out. I think I put like 35 hours into it. As a game, as a driving game, it's like all the cars. You got Robin Reliance in there, best game ever made. You've got all these vehicles. The location is gorgeous. Graphics are amazing. You've got these nice events. It's like you're in Top Gear. The game is fantastic. As a driving game, Forza Horizon 4 is I have to say, it's probably the best driving game that's come out and got the balance. The fact that I could play it with a wheel and not want to microwave my head. Whereas, when I try playing Forza 7, it's very obvious that the cars just prefer you sort of use a gamepad, chuck in and drift it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of seems to be the full design philosophy. Whereas Forza Horizon 4 seemed reasonably okay. I could enjoy it perfectly fine. I mean, I'm not treating it like a sim wave view, but that's not what it's meant to be anyway. So just, yeah, I thought Forza Horizon 4 was just extraordinary, but it's weird that they got it so right with Forza Horizon 4 for this is Top Gear the game, and then Forza 7 is kind of like, well, what's the point?
Well,
if it's not
I
sim,
think they feel like there's a different crowd, though. I think that the Forza 7 really has gone the way of catering to the drift community.
Yeah, maybe.
Where Forza Horizon 4 is more global, so I think they just kind of make it like, okay, here's the physics. They may not be super complicated, but this is going to give you a good sensation with a gamepad or a wheel. Here you go. Where I just feel like Forza 7, and I'm not going to get into Forza 7. It's just
Billy's triggered. He's like, Forza! Oh, damn you, 1010! I'll get my revenge.
I want Forza 4 back. So I just feel like if we're looking, it can be the prettiest game in the world. It can push all the specs of high-end PCs, and if I don't have a high-end PC, I can dumb it down for graphics, and it still looks nice. At the end of the day, I don't care if it doesn't drive well. I just don't. I would rather take something that looks like AMS over something that looks like Forza when AMS drives better. And while again, we can make the argument AMS could look better. I just don't care. I don't. At the
end of the day, sim racers are really basically just would-be real-world drivers, but don't have the money. Yes. So when it comes to driving sims and driving games, we're either looking for something that as best simulates that real-world experience for the most part that you can't afford, or you go, okay, it's a driving game, and I'm totally approaching it as a driving game, and I'm enjoying it as a game. So I think that's where sort of sim racers come at.
Right. But I will not discount GT Sport on a 4K TV looks amazing.
It does look nice, but
Oh,
it does have like some weird shimmering stuff. It doesn't have like the AA and I don't know if you've got a PS4 Pro or the normal one.
I have the PS4 Pro.
I'm using the normal one. It's like I've
it
got
doesn't have that on
something.
it doesn't have that. That's what I'm saying. On 4K.
Yeah.
It looks phenomenal.
No, I'm not spending £300 on a PS4 Pro. Just off the shops, guys. I see you.
But yeah, so I can appreciate how nice something looks. And like when iRacing did the update with their dynamic weather day to night transitions, I mean, whatever they did, right, to get the lighting, they had to change something in the lighting, and it just, even during the day, it changed the way that
clouds, Billy. They're called clouds.
Yeah.
And no, that is amazing.
I'm in California. I don't know what clouds are.
What is a cloud?
What is a cloud?
I really like the graphics in iRacing.
Oh my god!
This is not how we talk, Billy. I say we talk rather poshly over here. I'm having to dumb down my voice for you to understand me. I really like how iRacing looks, like the track details and just the cloud. Right, maybe this is a British thing. Maybe this is just me being weird. But when you've got a cloud obscuring the light, and then it goes, and then you go through the cloud, and you see the sunshine. It's like Jesus has touched you. You're in your skippy, and it's like, oh, it's miserable.
The God rays come down and touch you. You feel the touch of the Lord.
Oh, it's horrible. It's going to rain, and then the heavens open. And the Lord Jesus is upon you, and you come round. And you've just come up through. You're at Lime Rock, and you've done the corner, and the sun's come out. It's beautiful, and I would agree. I think they've nailed that in iRacing.
I would agree.
Yes.
I'm sure that has something to do with it. I'm just saying that it is nice when things look nice.
Yeah, no, it does. It definitely makes it. It makes it more pleasant. It's like if you happen to have a SimLabs sim rig that we've just built recently, when you've got nice equipment, nice graphics, it's like nice equipment. It's just, you don't need it. You don't have to have it. I'm spoiled, but it makes it nicer. So everyone obviously wants better graphics if you can have them.
Sure.
Not to the sacrifice of physics.
I was watching a video with the Unreal Engine, like what they're working on for VR, and it was some Mech Warrior thing blowing up a building.
Some Mech Warrior thing. Sean Cole does the robot. It's like Sean Cole Terminator.
And he's going to start popping and locking.
And it's shooting. And
it looks like your robot needs some lubrication. Sean's 1950s.
For those that are listening to this, he's got his hands up imitating a robot.
My robot's a Tin Man.
Okay.
So but the way the building was crumbling was like ultra realistic, and it's like, is that needed? No. But was it the coolest, most realistic thing I'd ever seen in a game on that respect? And it's like, yes, it was. And then I think back to like most of the damage we see. Like if I were to visually start picking apart our Sims, it's funny enough, it's usually not the world or the environment. And it's not even usually the car itself or the relationship between the car and the ground or the moving parts. It's usually the damage, because any hint of damage on a Sim usually looks so arcadish, and it's like, here's damage level 1, and it's like almost like it didn't. It almost doesn't care where you hit.
Pre-static, predetermined ways that.
But in iRacing, I'm being too positive about iRacing. Someone please. But no,
it's his American influence.
So in games in general, I mean, one of the things that with the first Half-Life, which was a big innovation, was the different surfaces, depending on the texture, would depend on the noise it made when you shot it and the stuff that comes off it. And stuff like that in a virtual game, in a virtual world, when you have something that confirms that wall is solid, because look, it's kind of doing what that type of wall would do in real life, it really helps build immersion. So in iRacing, just the bits of tire marbles and stuff and dirt flipping up and getting on the screen, it actually comes up and hits you. That even if it's a really small thing, and that was obviously even before they had the grass in the game, but having stuff that's interacting with the car and that's happening like that, it's a huge immersion boost.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the same with the damage. And I'm really surprised. I understand from the IP licensing why it's not always possible, but I'm surprised that I understand why you have like cars getting scratches. It's just a texture change or a little bit of deformation. The technical reasons behind that make sense for performance and everything, and just development time. But I'm really surprised why we haven't seen more instances of when there's a car contact, why they don't have more interesting particles coming off it. Not necessarily complicated particles or advanced particles, but just stuff that there's a cause and effect and a bit of, something actually happening. So, I mean, the new iRacing damage model, if they actually get that through, should be really interesting.
Yeah, let's hope. So we don't have crumpling carbon fiber.
Like you said, James, though, some of those really small details that we take for granted, but like when you go into the grass and the grass sticks to the tire, if you're an open wheeler and you see it, it's like little things like that when they don't happen, they might not break that immersion so much, but they don't sell it. And when those things happen, like you said, just a speck of dirt on your visor, and just a little bit of rumble, marbles, things that are in, because anybody who's been in a real car on a track, even in a real car on a freeway, it's like, unexpectedly, all of a sudden something hits your windshield. That's part of being in an automobile at 60, 70, 100 miles an hour or whatever.
Or if you're driving in Devon, you just have a pheasant walking in front of the car for half an hour. And it's not going to get out of the way. Then there's a horse.
I hear that's coming.
And then there's a tractor. You have to reverse all the way back up the way you've come.
I've heard that's coming to Nordschleife in all the sims that have scanned.
Pheasants.
Yeah, pheasants and horses.
Third strike.
But to your point, immersion braking. So iRacing got that starter deal now with their latest build, where you can start the car. So I'm sitting there. I'm getting ready to make my setup for the sprint car, and I haven't driven it probably since, I don't know, maybe January. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden you get this whoa. I'm all, that doesn't work like that. A sprint car doesn't have a starter. It's started, right? So, come on. You could at least give me like the idea that I know I'm taking off on my own. Like there's no push vehicle behind me, but at least give me the sound of the sprint car engine trying to turn over and the tires sliding, and then all of a sudden that, and then all of a sudden the car fires.
Wouldn't it be cool if it gave you a virtual push? Noise. You press a button and it gives.
Yes, that would be great. But in technical limitations, I don't know what that is, but at least give me the sound. I mean, come on, you're not even close with this. The sprint car doesn't have a starter. It doesn't work like that. It's
coming back to life like a Prius,
right? It's all come on, most realistic simulator ever.
But he's like, damn these sounds, I hate iRacing. I'm writing a strongly worded letter of complaint, and they will read it.
But that's right. I will say nasty things about you.
Hey, we talked about graphics. Go ahead, Billy. Sorry.
I will give them credit. They've been working towards making the cars and the track work better. And I have to say, the race that I did is probably one of the better overall that I've done. The setups seem to be more in line with what would be realistic, at least with what I came up with. And then the track states are better, because one of my big complaints about the track states were they were always way too dry. People would wear them out way too fast, and then it's just hug the top all the way around at the in the main event. So they've done better in that regard. It wasn't like that, so I appreciate that.
All right. We have other questions there, Brandon?
I killed it.
No, it's all great. Yeah, we do. The MX99, Brandon wants to know, and I had to kind of condense this down, so hopefully I captured the essence of his question. But he starts off with saying this is very subjective, and that with Gamer Muscle and his commentary on forced feedback delivery and various sims being better from one sim to another, and I know you two have echoed that point also, that he tends to agree with him. But with that being said, that with the force feedback delivery in various wheels and the settings and the differences, that what is the proper setting for the correct feel in the wheel, and that he thinks it depends on the car, and that he knows that Gamer Muscle often says that the direct drive saved him in certain instances where it corrected whatever the issue was for him. But if the dampening was high, it wouldn't react as fast. So with his limited experience with direct drive wheels, is that what makes them superior, or is it the amount of direct power and force and the dampening that can be set to high, but instantly kind of negate that dampening effect because of the features of the direct drive wheels. So I guess to summarize, what's your thoughts on setting up force feedback in the game versus the wheel, and what's the correct way to go about it?
That question was like that monkey question in Formula One.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. Next question.
I was going to say the answer is
No.
Oprah.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead, James. That was
Try to answer that quickly, right? So, because there's multiple things about this, because I know I've gone about force feedback low. I want to do a video. I need to do a video feedback because there's like 4 different aspects to it. But to try and summarize quickly, right? So you have you have like you can have literal force feedback in a driving simulator. Many real world cars have essentially no force feedback through the steering wheel. You don't feel much at all. I don't have that much experience with road cars. I've been like 3 road cars and a couple of go karts and what have you. Not much experience in real life. But some of the stuff I've driven had no feel through the wheel whatsoever at all. It might as well. It could have been a T300 with the power turned off. But the point is, you could feel the G forces anyway, so it didn't matter. So you could set up your force feedback steering wheel to be literally like the real car. Say there's a race car, say the cast is set up in a certain way or it's dampened so that there's no force feedback. With a direct drive wheel or consumer wheel, you could set your force feedback up so it's like the real car and you don't feel much through the steering. Great, that's an option, and that applies to consumer wheels and direct drive wheels. The thing is, we're playing driving simulators. Not all of us have motion rigs, and motion rigs are slow anyway, generally. Some aren't, but most of them are. So you've got a steering wheel that does force feedback. Personally, I'm not using my force feedback wheel just to mirror what the car's actual steering feels like. I'm using the force feedback wheel to feel what the physics are doing or what that G-force feel on the body would be and what you feel in a car to inform you as to what's going on with the car so you can then drive from that. Because personally, I don't particularly drive from the sound that much. And I don't particularly drive from the visuals that much because I'm normally reading the chat room. So I use the force feedback to drive from. And most real-world drivers, and this is from talking to pro drivers as well as amateur drivers, most real-world drivers, firstly, if you ever drive a car at a training centre, they'll be like, listen to what the car's telling you through your body. That's like the primary way to drive a car, from my understanding, what I've been told. So that's how I set the force feedback up for me, is trying to get as much information from the sim, from the physics in the sim, through the steering wheel in a way that I can drive it, and generally in a way that doesn't make the steering absolutely mental. So I still dial it down a bit. So there's a subjective element to there. But ultimately, the sim needs to give you the option to be able to dial that into how you want it. Now, to specifically answer the question of me saying the force feedback has caught the car, and like what you pointed out with the dampening, yeah, if you set the wheel up in a certain way that's maybe more realistic with certain vehicles, you probably do find that the self-aligning isn't aggressive enough to instantly catch the car. You'll manually have to correct it as you would manually correct it in a real car, because you'd be like, oh, the back's coming out a bit too much, I'll correct it, and the steering doesn't do it. But often with many of the sims, I will set up in a certain way where the direct drive will pretty much will often correct the car for me, or it will give me enough sense, as the G-force sense would in real life, that I can be like, oh, now I need to correct it. I'm on the limit of the tires, and I can correct it now. So that's kind of when I'm saying, oh, the direct drive wheel saved me, it's because the direct drive wheel can be set up to give enough information, and it has enough rotational speed that I can get the information and it corrects it. And it's effectively, it's easier to drive with the direct drive wheel than it is using a consumer wheel, that if you're trying to get the maximum information from it, you might then lose out on other aspects of it correcting it, because there's just a limited amount of information and what you can get from a T300, a CSL Elite, a G29. So the direct drive wheel just gives you the ability to set it up exactly as you want and get as much information from the game as possible.
So did you just proclaim yourself a cheater? Is
pretty much, yeah. Because I haven't got any talent, just using equipment and pay to win. But yeah, so I mean that's the thing with the force feedback. For largely for me, my perception of force feedback is it's a mixture of it being a literal way of feeling how that car would kind of feel through the steering, but it's mostly a way for me to get information, motion, G-force information from the simulator, which is why I then get frustrated from the force feedback from iRacing, which is very literal to the you feel very sharp suspension, and the self-aligning is very aggressive for catching the rear, but it lacks other aspects of force feedback. And Assetto Corsa Competizione as well, it's very literal to what you'd probably feel in the real car's steering, in that you don't get, in many situations, you don't actually get that much information from it. So that's why those two sims rub me up the wrong way a little bit with the force feedback. But yeah, there you go, novel. So I need to do a video on it that makes it clear and concise, because otherwise I just witter on it. Doesn't make
that would help,
sense.
because that didn't help me at all right there.
No. What was he saying? I'll just sit my tea.
What was the
the
question, Billy? Billy, you have any thoughts on that?
I do.
Uh-oh.
My thoughts usually irritate people, so
Go for it, Billy. Billy's below me.
yes, punch down.
Shaun's above me.
Punch down. So I approach this a little differently in the fact that I have very limited experience. I do have experience with a direct drive, but very limited. Like, I do not own one, but I have run them. So I currently run a TSPC racer. I've been running it for I don't know, almost since they first came out. I've had Fanatec, bunch of way back in the day. I had a Mad Cats.
Ooh.
So yeah, right. So my racing background in sprint cars and road racing, and then also racing RC cars like I did, and racing slot cars. The way I interpret what I'm seeing gives me a faux sense of what's going on. In other words, when I raced an RC car, I could feel what the car was doing, and I have nothing that connects me to it. But because of what the visual representation of what the car is doing, you can get a sense of when the car loads, when it unloads. You can make corrections because the car's going to spin out. You can see it. Once you make enough laps, you can see when the car is going to spin out. Same thing with a slot car. You can tell when you are pushing it. You can tell when the back end starts to wiggle a little too much. So the way I perceive stuff is different, because like when I raced a real car, I've gotten plenty cars sideways. When a car starts to get over center, right? The car starts to slide sideways. You're fighting it, and you realize I'm starting to spin out. Your natural reaction is to counter steer. And that is because the resistance is less when you counter steer, because you are going in the direction of the slide. That's how you're going to catch the car, right? So the path of least resistance happens here and does not allow you to steer back. It doesn't bring the wheel back. It's going to stay there. If you've ever slid a car and just let go of the wheel, it'll go whoop. And if you're sliding through a left-hand turn, the wheel turns to the right and it counter steers, and it just keeps going that direction until the back end grip of the car starts to overcome the lateral slide that's happening. And then as the car starts to slow down, your slide, the forward momentum or the grip of the rear tire starts to kick in. You'll start to feel that you can start to bring the wheel back, because now the path of resistance isn't so strong to bring the wheel back. And all of a sudden you'll kind of pull, and all of a sudden you'll feel the wheel come back in line. So for me to have something correct for me is very unnatural feeling, is a very foreign feeling regardless. And how I feel a car is not in the wheel, it's visually what's happening. And it may be because I developed those skills while racing RC cars at a younger age, and the slot cars, I look for the visual cues to tell me what the car is doing. So even though I'm not sitting in the car like I have in real life, even though I'm not sitting in a car when I'm in my rig and I can't feel the load of the car and I can't feel certain things, what I'm looking for is to tell me when the front end loads up. That's what I need the force feedback to do. I need the front end to load. I don't need anything else. So I always think my view on this is skewed just because I just don't need those things. And actually, it messes me up. It's very foreign feeling when something goes to correct for me. So I if somebody wants to give me a direct drive wheel, I'm not going to sit there and go, no, because there are things that it can do better than my wheel that I currently have, which is obvious. The strength, the fidelity, maybe the quickness. See, and I don't run really strong force feedback either. My force feedback, almost comparative to almost anybody else that I talk to, is fairly light. So the rotation and all this, it doesn't really make that big of a difference to me. Like I said, I'm not going to turn down a direct drive wheel, but I'm also not going to spend the money because I'm perfectly happy with what I have.
But it's interesting. This is why I think with my argument on it, what I think is important is that the developer has to give. You need the options there, because I totally understand where you're coming from with it, and because at the end of the day, you have the. If you drive from the field and you require that field, if you don't have an option for that, you're screwed.
Right.
If you're someone that can drive from the visuals, but you don't you can drive from the, you're fine driving from the visuals, and you don't want what seemingly is a wrong force feedback field through the steering wheel because it's a counter field to what you've learnt, because it's going to throw you off. Then you need the ability to then be able to have it so it doesn't have that. And then because I've lost track of where we had like three different angles of like people that driving from visuals, awesome, right? People that are driving from a force feedback that's the G-force feel in the wheel, and then you've got like a literal force feedback that's from what you would actually literally get from the steering column of a given car. And really just to simplify it, you just need the options in the simulator, and then you've basically covered the grounds there. And with AC, which I think does a good range of it, and Automobilista, and AC and Automobilista in particular, you can effectively set up most of the wheels on the market to if you drive from visuals and you just want a more muted steering feel, or you want a specific type of feel, you've got that as an option. But if you have a simulator, when it comes to iRacing and ACC and some specific cars and other simulators, if they don't give a feel for front end subtle front end grip, I'm going to get stick for this one. But if it doesn't give a feel, if it doesn't give a leading or loading feel for that, it's just really sort of general self-aligning, then then people that require that would require G-forces in real life. Then they're screwed if they don't have that as an option.
Well, and that's to your point. Sometimes with certain cars in AC or iRacing, I don't get that front end load, and I'm also not getting the visual that the car is sticking. And that's where I get lost, is because I don't look for the same things that you're looking for. I look for something completely different. And when it doesn't give it to me, I'm like, where am I at? And I really have to concentrate and like almost retrain my brain when I'm driving those cars, because Automobilista, again, I like Automobilista. I like Race Room. I like some of the cars in AC. I like some of the cars in iRacing, some of the cars in R Factor 2. But as a whole, Automobilista and Race Room seem to align more naturally with me. And it's because I can not only feel that front end load, I can also visually tell that the car seems like it's in the track.
Yeah.
And so AC sometimes messes with me, same thing as iRacing, that I get in there and it just feels like the car's just floating across the track. And that's probably due to the way I set things up. So I will sit there and complain AC like it don't feel right.
Both AC and iRacing do have certain cars that are abruptly understeery, or perceivably abruptly understeery. Does depend on your equipment as well. But with the direct drive wheel, for you especially, or for anyone, the biggest selling point of a direct drive wheel over the other wheels is that you have so much range there that you can set it up to however you want. So that's really what the selling point is. It's not necessarily the crazy strength, which sure allows you to have an IndyCar experience of 20 Newton meters breaking your wrists every corner. Great. Some people really want that, but it's more just that you've got so much to play with. You can dial it into exactly what you want.
Okay.
Go ahead, Shaun.
Hold on. Yeah. So a couple of things I want to touch upon. First of all, a few donations came in real quick. So real quick, I want to thank Nocturnal, Front Seat Racing, and Darren Ganji, all for getting in on the donations. I didn't want to miss that. Getting back to the force feedback topic, I think that if you were to poll 100 people who are avid sim racers, 100 people who've never sim raced, and 100 people who are real life racers, that every single one of them is going to give you a different idea on what this should actually be, because I think we all have preconceived notions. Like even when Billy was talking about the RC cars and being able to see what it's doing and visualize and mentally kind of know what to do because he was driving the car, he kind of had gotten in sync with it on a visual basis. And then that's a big part of what we're doing with sims. Now, we drive sims that have crap force feedback and it can ruin everything, sure. But some cars are very muted. So it comes down to like, well, what kind of car are you actually simulating? And in a lot of sims, they do everything from a Legends or a Reliant Robin to a Formula One car. And it's not going to be a one size fits all. But here's what I will say. For anybody who's trying to take anything away from this, like, you have to dial your force feedback in, regardless of what your sim is and the settings available, regardless what wheel you're using and the settings available, because some have more than others. If you feel like that wheel is not returning to center quickly and it's harming you from coming out of the corner, then that's exactly what you need to address. And I think for sim racers, getting that dialed in should be a little bit easier than car setup on the car, but is almost going to be just as important to being able to turn consistent laps.
I would agree.
When you look at the alien level racers, I don't think it matters what kind of wheel you give them. They're going to probably run really light force feedback, and they're probably going to drive like the gods no matter what. And I think the topic of getting things super duper dialed in really helps the normals more than the aliens, because again, they'd be just fine with you turning it all the way down to 3% and running a G29. I don't know if a lot of them would complain about a G29 as we sit here saying, and I'm one of the first to say I love my direct drive wheel. I love the tunability that it has and things that I can do to get it just
Shaun's
right
part
for
of the
me.
DD crew.
I am. I'm a
Poor
DD
little
believer.
Billy. Poor Billy with his
But on the
DD
other hand,
wheel.
I like taking my wheel and just plugging it in and it works.
DDs do just work. This is a myth, Billy.
No,
This is
it
a
is
myth.
not. I've
But-
seen
They
it.
do.
I've seen it.
But
That is not a myth. You've got to load so many things, and then you
Billy.
can endlessly tune that thing beyond. You can't tell me that it doesn't. You can't tell me that it doesn't. You can't tell me that taking a Thrustmaster and plugging it in, getting the drivers, and then you're done, and you can play with a few settings.
Have you used a Thrustmaster with Dirt Rally 2.0, Billy?
I
Because
have.
I'll tell you,
It's awful.
there were
It's
some
awful.
issues there.
Nah, I
But
I was the first one that said there was a problem. Actually,
the big argument though that I would say for my overall position is I don't think that any sim has to feel any specific way. I just argue that the driving simulators should have put out as much information as possible and the ability to configure it. Now, obviously, they need to, out of the box, driving simulators need to have good defaults there because you don't want to intimidate users. You don't want to make it overly complicated with stupid force feedback settings. But fundamentally, if you've got the sim outputting the information, then it's up to the users that they can then set it up to how they want to have it set up. Whereas if the sim developer makes the choice for the users, anyone that would like it a certain way or drives in a certain way or prefers it in a certain way, well, then they're out of luck. So that's my sort of thing. Is that you want the sim should give the information.
I'm gonna make a point. I see all you people telling me that it's plug and play, active force, all this stuff. I'm gonna say you're wrong, number one.
The DD crew, how dare you insult us?
3 to 5 years, how many times has it not come out where you have to wait for a patch, you have to wait for something else for that particular wheel to work? I'm sorry. It
depends on the game. If it's
I know,
ace,
but
yeah,
my
I know what
point
you're
is
saying.
it's not every game.
Yeah,
And
Billy's getting angry.
I can plug in any one of my consumer grade wheels.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I think
they work. Now, I'm not saying that they're not better than they used to be, but my point still remains that I can plug any wheel. I've got a handful of wheels here, consumer wheels. I plug those in, they'll all the.
I think it's on a scale. I think where the DD users get from back in 2012 when Emos and
and nothing worked
came out, it was insane. You had to really know what you were doing.
And
it was pretty crazy. And since Simucube and like the AccuForce, it's like, well, yeah, it's not plug and play in the same degree as the Thrustmasters and stuff. So yeah, but it's not complicated. But so I agree with what you're saying there. But that is one of the big, I think for a lot of people, that is going to be one of the big selling points of the Fanatec Ds. Is what they're hoping for, is the fact that ideally, if they've done it right, you potentially get a literal plug and play like you're describing, and the combination with the direct drive wheel. But even then, people are still going to want to fiddle with the force feedback either way. And you still fiddle with the force feedback on a TSPC.
No,
but you're
Darren, you're wrong. Darren, you're wrong.
But you're going to see a wide variety.
Darren's getting in with the AccuForce now, is he?
No.
Even if you just look at something like degrees of rotation, you're going to see a huge variety of opinions. So like when Dirt Rally 2.0 came out, I heard every rotation under the sun as, oh, well, no, this is what you need to run. And I'm just sitting there thinking, there's no point in telling that guy. That's like, different strokes for different folks. That's like trying to tell somebody what a beautiful woman is like, and we all know that me and James on a man scale are butt ugly because we're bald, right? That's just general
I beg your
consensus.
pardon, Shaun. I put makeup on just for you, and now you've thrown it back in my face.
But different. Everybody has a different opinion, and like, it is very personal. It is our only. When you're thinking about force feedback in our sims, it's giving us that, and I just did a review on the GS5 seat, and this kind of goes right into that, or talking about motion too. Force feedback's very similar, but it's like the one thing we don't have, as we all are wannabe racers, is we don't have that inner ear G-force seat of the pants driving thing, and anyone who's driven a real car knows that driving a car, listen to the car. Yes, your butt, and it's not even your butt, it's just the whole being in the car. It's telling you as much of what the car is doing, and sometimes even faster than what your eyes are telling you. You're going to feel those tires step out before you see the pivot of the car. And so the force feedback is the only tool we sim racers really get that can give us that seat of a pants. So again, I it comes down to what do you need it to do? Because again, somebody's, talking about damping and the return speed. And I think that is really critical. And one of the things that I do love about the Fanatec software is that they have the drift mode, because it basically is the weight and, the centrifugal forces of the wheel turning and how fast does it resist itself and counter turn. And, everybody drives differently. I'm the saw. So, I'm doing this. I needed something that's going to be very quick reactive because that's the way I drive. And if the wheel had too much damping or too much friction, whatever you want to call it, slowing that action down, it would immediately slow me down in my ability to drive a car, because that's my driving style. It's, and unlike real life racing, I think we can drive to our styles a little more in sim racing than you can in real life, because we can use a variety of rotational direct. Somebody runs 360, they've got a very twitchy wheel. Somebody who runs 900 has a much more tame wheel, and it doesn't matter what sim you're playing.
Can I cure Darren Ganji from the aneurysm he's having right now? I'm going to say something nice about AccuForce, right? There is some good stuff about AccuForce. No,
I'm not saying there's
So specifically though, I'm not even joking.
Saying.
But no, specifically with the AccuForce wheel, they have actually worked with developers. They have sent the AccuForce out. So because that's the biggest aspect of something being plug and play, is that the developer has to have access to the unit, and then they set it up. And AccuForce have been proactive with that. A big aspect of the AccuForce wheel that it has that other direct drive wheels and force feedback wheels don't have is the option to choose either you can drive the force feedback from the force feedback that the game's putting out, as in like the direct input force feedback,
like a standard wheel would.
Yeah, the standard wheel force feedback, or you can choose to drive the force feedback through the physics output of the simulator, and that means that if you're playing ACC or iRacing. Though when I experimented with iRacing, it was marginal what you could get out of it, because fundamentally a sim is you're still going to be limited to the time model of the sim and what it is. But either way, with using the AccuForce settings, you can essentially, regardless of what a developer's put in the sim for how they think force feedback should be, you can then use the AccuForce sim commander to dial in your force feedback and set it up more how you want it. And to be honest, and to be fair to AccuForce, that is actually a really good software innovation, and they should get a lot of credit for it. And I'm really surprised at Fanatec. I hope that they do something like that, and I'd really like to see SimuCube do something like that as well.
Why haven't they
coming out of the game physics?
Why? I mean, even Logitech should at this point. It's like
they should all do it. But I think the reason they haven't is because the reason I believe AccuForce has it is because obviously they do their full motion platforms. They do the whole sort of gamut of motion stuff, and it's probably just a convenient. They'd already developed the ability to extract the data. Well, they take the data that comes out of the game, which is nothing new. That comes out of all the top simulators. But they'd already developed Sim Commander for those motion platforms. And when they were doing the direct drive wheel, they were probably like, "Oh, hang on, we can use this on the wheel as well." So that's probably why.
Right. It does a really good job. And so, like, again, what's not disparaging
it's really good.
AccuForce. My point was.
I know. I was just trying to calm Darren down.
To make the point that
I can imagine him.
I was just trying to make the point that we've made progress, right? Remember, look at Sebastian Lobrelli Evo that would only take one input, one USB device. So
couldn't even use a direct drive wheel. Period.
WRC Rally 7 as well doesn't work with a wheel unless it's like a specific. And it's like it's a good game. It's fine. I'd like to play it. They better fix it with 8 or whatever it is.
And I haven't, with the 3 wheels I've tested, mine hasn't had any. None of them have had issues with WRC7. So
with Thrustmaster or something,
that's what. But okay,
yeah,
that was my point.
Billy's won the argument. Damn it!
That's my point. As we get further along, then I think more developers are getting on board with direct drive, and it's going to become less and less of an issue. But that still doesn't mean it hasn't been an issue up to now in the past 3 to 5 years. And that was my point: is that the consumer wheels for what they lack in fidelity and tunability, there is a simpler side to those where you literally just put those suckers in and then they start working. And
that's valid.
So, that was the point.
Billy,
point taken.
Izzy's trying to bribe us to come over to the dark side. He just gave £5 for us to come to AC and experience the superior subtle front end feel. and just for the record, that is £1 for each USB port. That's how that.
The nuances of that donation.
Dear.
Very deep, very layered. Like force feedback, that was a layered donation right there. So, force feedback. Some games, like I always come back to Wreckfest. Because it's a game that I don't believe is like superiorly physics driven in terms of like simulation model, comparing it to, whatever you want to call the big 3 sims. But they built a game kind of, in my opinion, around force feedback. And I call it just this like very workable, easy to drive force feedback. Because you get in and it has a really natural feeling. So you're like, hey, that's what oversteer feels like. That's what understeer feels like. That's what brake lockup feels, And they're really maybe even over the top signals and very simplified so that it's very clear to your brain of what's going on with the car. And I think that's important because it almost removes the need for this conversation. Because I think that a lot of that super tuning, getting very critical of what it does, is happening more on that upper end scale of sim once again, where, we're trying to achieve things on a real specific level at that point. I think back in the day, we brought Live for Speed up. I always come back to Live for Speed because one of the things that made Live for Speed so awesome, this was sort of the early era, of force feedback. Not that, it had been around, but around that era in the, 2003 is when force feedback was really starting to come along, and there are people who are still not using force feedback steering wheels in 2000. So, but Live for Speed had this like really natural feel so that anybody who knew how to drive a car would get in the sim, regardless of their wheel, regardless of the settings, and their overall opinion would be, well, yeah, that's how a car feels. And it made it just automatic for people to get in, and there was no calibration.
It's hard
time.
to know how much is the force feedback and how much is the given physics for a certain game because it's so intertwined. Like obviously the force feedback is often driven from the specific physics, So when someone might think, oh, the force feedback's terrible, they might actually just they don't like the physics.
Well, but
you know,
and to that point, how often do you get on a track that feels like it's glass smooth, and then you go, I can't feel the front end? Because if you're running on a track that's super smooth, like we've driven on mod tracks that are literally just there's no any sort of texture road to it, nothing. And I often see people go, oh, well, this sucks because of the track. Well, how often does the force feedback get accredited to something like that when they're driving on a track that's super smooth? Oh, well, the force feedback sucks and it's actually the track itself.
Right.
Because
that's why I think it's interesting with Shaun Cole's point with Wreckfest, in that, and this is kind of where I go, because I'm driving these sims for fun. Really. I don't necessarily. I'd love to drive some of these real cars in real life, but when it comes to the force feedback, it's like, well, I want self-aligning. I want to know if I'm understeering. I want to lead in for understeer, and I need a bit of suspension information that might be, if the track's smooth, then I don't get much of that. And there's probably 10 or so, maybe 8 or so specific types of force feedback that could be done better or worse, but they should be there as a baseline option, because that covers the experience of what you're generally listening to in a real car when you're driving. And so they can be done better or worse. Some might be missing, but generally there's probably 8 core things. And I don't think all the simulators tick all off all those boxes by default, which it seems strange to me. I think they should do.
Right.
But yeah,
it's interesting how many examples developers have and how they choose to not implement the good parts of other sims.
But I think that's probably because it's so bloody hard to make. It's easy for us to sit here as of gamers and commentators, and but it's just games development is insane, and you have to be insane to be a games developer, and to be a driving sim developer you have to be beyond insane.
Right.
So that's the thing as well. It's obviously it's so hard just to get a game finished, and then even harder to get a driving simulator finished. So it's nice for us to nitpick on top of it and be like, oh, it should have this. What are they doing? It should be better.
And you wonder if Dirt Rally 2.0 has that issue. What if it's not actually a force feedback issue as far as the physics and the actual force feedback? What if it's the road?
Yeah.
But they did have it in Dirt Rally 1. It's specifically missing the two.
Yeah, it is. But I see what you're saying. What if that is majorly contributing to what we're not getting out of it?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what's going on with Codemasters. Yeah, I don't.
That one's a whole.
I get the impression with Dirt Rally, as it has nice physics. I like how it drives. It lacks content, and there's lots of stuff with it which isn't good. But fundamentally, it drives nicely. So yes. I'm kind of happy as a sim racer, but I want it to be better. But I get the impression what happened is Codemasters have their really tight deadline. The main IP is a Formula One title, and then the time is ticking down. They've got a certain amount of resources on it, and they're like, right, we've set this date. The media goes out, the marketing goes out this date, the game goes out, it's gone to press, it's printed, right, we're cutting it off. And I get the impression the way they develop their titles is that they have it so it effectively runs mostly bug-free very early in the development for that title, which means when the cutoff date approaches, they just go, right, ship it. Whereas other developers, the game might not actually be stable, it might have other things, so that they can't just ship it at that date. So the result is with other developers, when they do ship stuff, you kind of have a more rounded thing that you kind of makes sense. Whereas when Codemasters ship stuff, it's like, hang on a minute, how did you miss this? How did you miss this thing that's so basic? It's just,
well, I mean, with Codemasters, the day one patch is sort of synonymous with a title release, right?
Well, and the other thing is the part that worries me is when they did that last update. Since we're on the force feedback topic, is that, well, we're trying to find the balance because some people say they like it. I'm like, A, who are these people? But B, it isn't you as a developer should know that.
Yeah. But it's like they did it with the VR as well. They were like, oh, we're just waiting. And it's like, well, no, I'm pretty sure they played it because they wanted to get, which is fair enough, which is a good play to them. But you can't put out their press releases.
Right.
I think maybe they were trained by the same people as Theresa May. Their press releases they come out and it's like, what is going on? There's no dialogue. It's like they're just press releases to they don't expect anyone to read it. It's like they're just dead with what they put out. It's really weird.
It is. But so I read that one. I was like, that doesn't inspire much confidence.
It makes sense. Oh well, poor Codemasters.
It's funny that you guys have brought it full circle. Sorry, Shaun, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No,
but
you're fine.
you guys have kind of brought it full circle when, Mike from Sim Racing 604 was talking about how far should developers push for certain things. And Dirt Rally 2.0 is a good example. It's beautiful in comparison to the original Dirt Rally. But, the biggest thing that's killing it right now is it's missing something fundamental. And that's usable feedback that you can use to interpret what the car's doing. So it kind of plays into it of how important something as minor as force feedback can be in the sales of a title. Same thing with graphics.
Well, and it's a bigger complaint than even lack of VR. When you read things in the forums and on whatever, it's
Right.
Force feedback is hands down the number one complaint I see when talking about Dirt Rally 2. It's not even lack of content; it's just force feedback.
Well, I'm not a huge force feedback snob, so I sit there and I'm playing the game. I'm like, well, even for me, this sucks. I sit there and I'm driving. I'm like, yeah, this is not as good as it could be. And so when I did like my first impressions, I try to think of it as people in the mind of people that are really into force feedback. And so I took that stance as like, if you're into force feedback at all, like this is going to be very disappointing to you. And it's frustrating because it's wasted potential. I think that's the disappointing part.
The Codemasters content is so like the graphics, the work that goes into it, the audio design is amazing.
The
There's so
UI,
much in it that you're just like, oh my god, this is incredible.
The UI
and then
is
you're
fun
like,
to
what?
interact with. Yeah,
That's why if it was crap, like a lot of games are crap. Again, games are hard to make. I'm not ragging on developers. I appreciate how difficult it is, but a lot of games are crap. Codemasters games aren't crap. That's what's frustrating.
Right.
Is that you're like, it's so good on one level, and then it's like, what have you done here? It's like
I can still get enjoyment, like you said. I could still get enjoyment out of driving that game. Like I like the way the cars work. They seem. I actually have.
So I'm the same, yeah.
But it's just that one layer that is so glaring. And I know for a lot of people, if the force feedback isn't any good, people aren't going to drive it. I'm a little less stringent on that because there's something there. It's just not a lot of it. It's just how heavy is the wheel? So it
did the single player
thing, right? Project Cars 2 had so many things that they did better or over Project Cars 1 or that they just did right, period. But then there's so many other things in that particular sim that it just awful. And you're like,
that's this slightly My Studio way where they go like, they're like, okay, we'll put this insane thing in. It's like, oh, day, night, weather, snow.
Yeah, right?
Oh, we've got every car in the world. We've got all the tracks. Some of them are laser scanned. Oh, it's amazing.
Peasants
Dynamic
and horses.
Sensitive road. You're like, oh. And then it's like you doing a live stream. And even now, people be like, I've been disconnected from the server. I'm like, oh. Come on. And then, oh dear, I don't know, because they're so ambitious. I think you brought it up specifically with Project Cars 2 starting in My Studios. It's like if they dialed the ambition back, which they probably won't do, because I guess they're a very passion driven studio. So I appreciate where they've gone with it and how it's happened. But if they dialed it back 15-20%. And then just hammered away, polished at that dial back thing, you'd be like, well, that's it. It's a platform for, it's like the sim, but it's those little niggles that stop it from. And then you end up just falling back on the other sims for my type of scenario, like Assetto Corsa. It's like, well, it's got the mod support, it works, it's stable. So at the end of the day, the sort of bread and butter in the long term of playing a driving sim, for those of us that spend too much playing driving sims, the bread and butter stuff is what really keeps you coming back to a sim. So yeah. Sorry, Billy, I interrupted you again. I hit myself.
No, that was fine. No, it's fine. I echo the same thoughts. So it's not to disparage or demean the game developers. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating
from
because
the player's perspective,
as an impassioned group of enthusiasts, whether you're talking force feedback. And it's not that I don't care about force feedback. I want some. I'm just probably not as particular as other people. Or like the graphics. Again, I'm not as particular as some other people on the graphics end of it. But as an impassioned group, we see the potential in these games or sims, and it's frustrating to not see a realized version of what the developer had in mind. We see compromises, and I know that's due to budget. I know that's due to time. I know that's due to, drop dead dates, but you almost feel like it would be nice to narrow the scope a little bit and put out that nice polished product and then iterate. Like, I will use Naughty Dog as a good example. On the PS3 was known to have very frustrating architecture to work with. It was not developer friendly. But when you look at Uncharted and then they made The Last of Us, you can see the leaps that they were making because they stayed with the same thing. They didn't jump from platform to platform. They were on one dedicated piece of hardware to develop for. And as they did it, their games just improved. And so you almost feel like, to a degree, why can't we do the same thing? Why can't we have version 1 and then take all the good stuff out of version 1 and keep that, and then iterate for version 2 and make that better?
We don't know with the new one. We don't know what's happening with the new Project Cars 3 that they're doing.
Oh, well, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, no, we don't even know if they are. I mean, they're going to build on the previous stuff, because why would you throw away all that work? But it's like, you don't know what's going on. What they could do something. Anything. It could be a flight sim.
Well, Mike from Sim Racing 604, excuse me, said that Slightly Mad is so passionate that probably in Project Cars 3 they're going to have tornadoes. So,
oh man, whisk your car away just like just like a trailer park.
That's right.
Azar, I do not have any motion. I don't have any of that. I think those are cool. I think the motion sims are something really neat, and I've never tried one with the traction loss system, but I hear those are really cool. I just don't have one. I race. Here's
doesn't
what
have
I'm
a direct drive wheel. Doesn't have a.
I race on an ultra.
Has very small steering wheels behind him that can't even fit in a single hand.
There we go. So I don't know. I race on an ultra wide monitor, which I really like. I've tried VR. It's fine. I prefer my ultra wide for right now. And I race on, a consumer grade wheel and pedals.
Does your ultra wide take 1 or 2 monitor plugs?
1.
So for streaming, I could capture that plug and then just square it down to 1920 1080 out of the middle.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
I think ultra wides are awesome. I don't use one myself.
I want to get one
for streaming. I find a 16:9 just works very conveniently. It's auto, But for me personally, I love VR. If I was just driving for myself, I'd just do VR. But for people that like the triple screen experience, but don't want that hassle and pain with all the cables, and it is a bit of an arse, just having those ultra wide screens, I think, are fantastic. That's something that's only come about in the last couple of years, and the price now this year getting to a good point. So I really like to get one of them to try.
Are you on a DisplayPort or HDMI? I'm totally derailed our show here. DisplayPort.
Display.
Okay. DisplayPort won't work for me.
It's funny that this came up, because this is a topic, and Billy and Shaun, you can attest to this. I've been trying to get to this for the last 2 weeks, and I was actually going to skip it today because we're 2 hours and 15 minutes in, which I know, James, that for your streams, you're just getting warmed up.
It's just started. I'm only 1 cup of tea down. I'm off to the kitchen for another cup of tea.
Oh,
Get going, boys. 12 more hours of this.
Yeah, I'll need a bathroom break and another cup of coffee. I'll be good to go.
Just pee in the cup.
So I don't know if we want to go into this. I mean, I've seriously wanted to go into this topic of triples versus ultra wides, because obviously VR is a separate thing, and we know it still needs improvements, and we all, with probably the exclusion of Billy, he's accepting of it, but he's not an embracer. But Shaun and James, and I mean, I'm 100%.
I haven't been indoctrinated.
That's right. We haven't got you yet.
I'm going to do the rest of this show in VR. Screw it.
There you go. But I don't know. Do you guys, and I don't know if the audience wants us to go into this, triples versus ultra wides?
I'd go ultra wide myself. I can't be asked for triple screen. I totally understand if I was doing a bespoke simulator for like a specific application that required that, the specific. If you needed a very specific thing, you could triple screens. But for your home user, the main reason of triple screen is you just want that little bit of extra width so you can just about see what you'd kind of see from a real world helmet. You can see the mirrors, which you can't get on a 16:9 screen at low res. Like a, not 16:9. Yeah, 16:9. So you can't see that on like a single screen. So the ultra wide is like you lose all the wire nonsense. More games are probably going to support it better because it's easier to implement because it's a single rendered view and everything.
Right.
So you don't need proper triple screen support in the games. It's more seamless. You only have one cable going to your computer for the graphics card. You don't need like the extra graphic card ports and everything. It just makes sense. It's one unit you can upgrade easier. It fits on one monitor mount, so you don't need a triple screen monitor mount. There's so many benefits to it just having the one. And then the G-Sync, which is the massive one, because if you've used G-Sync or FreeSync, it's like, oh, well, you're not going back. And they're designed specifically as gaming screens, 100 plus FPS, which the frame rate, I think, makes quite a big difference up to 100 FPS. After that, it kind of doesn't make much difference. But
Yeah, I know
100 over 60
for me. Once it gets past about 90, I can't tell a difference.
That's it. Yeah. So 90 is that's why the VR headsets are at 90. It's that same threshold. So yeah, I mean, I think the ultra wides for people that aren't sold on VR, but we're sort of thinking ultra triple screen or ultra wide. I'd 100% go ultra wide for me personally, having not used one. So I have used one briefly, but not at home.
My favorite aspect of triple screens is something I'm concerned that an ultra wide might not achieve. And what's funny is, as much as I run in triples, I will confess I do not really look beyond the bezels. Like, going into a corner, I can see the apex in that center monitor. It's not over in the right monitor, so I don't need to look to my right monitor to turn in for a corner. Now, occasionally I might look over to see if there's a car next to me, but your view is so far forward still, even though it's looking right, you're not looking back. You're looking like, from mid-door forward. So by the time a car is actually there, you've overlapped them for quite some time. So you better not be using that visual to check on your competitor anyway. But what I find the triples do for me, the thing about immersion is we want to be perfectly immersed in our sims, and everything we buy and everything we do is an attempt to get more immersion and play that trick on our brain to confuse us to think we're really doing this. And I think that anything that ever takes you or breaks you away from that immersion takes away from the sim a lot. So I have triple screens because it prevents that much more. It's that much more peripheral filled up so that my brain can't find a spot on the wall or my dog or roommate or somebody walking by. And it's like, that's what those two other monitors do for me. When I was on a single screen, I had so much boundary of life outside of my sim that it was very easy to find distraction and come out of that immersion level. So, and I'm a little concerned that the ultra wide being a little bit narrow won't do that, but I think the dimension is ideal because it's like now that view and looking to apex.
Put a helmet on you when you run the ultra wide.
Yes. Oh, it would be perfect.
Like horse blinders.
He needs those horse blinkers to stop.
But that's where we come back to VR, though.
Sure.
Because in VR, funny enough, I'm so desperate for VR to get better because when I play VR, it's so good, Billy, that when you take your hand off the wheel and the glove in-game doesn't come off the wheel, you get angered because you were so convinced it was your freaking
Oh, I believe
hand.
it. I've tried VR. It's just to kind of circle to this topic. I've tried triples and I've tried VR. Now, I will say I have not done, and I used to have a 16:9 single, but I've been using that BenQ ultra wide basically ever since John did that review on Inside Sim Racing. I was like, that seems, for my area, that seems like a perfect compromise of what I can do. And what I've noticed is it gives me almost the same field of view as like when I put on my racing helmet. And if you've ever tried to race in an actual race car helmet, not even a motorcycle helmet, because in the motorcycle helmet, you have a wider field, you have a bigger eye port. In a race helmet, you have a very small, limited port that you can look through. It gives me that same frame of reference, basically. It gives me that. And when you're in the seats that we use, you can't really turn your head a whole lot. You've got very limited motion, and all that is blocked off because of now keeping your head from going way over here, you've got the headrests and everything along the side. So I actually find that to be a bigger distraction for me for like when I use VR and stuff. The fact that you can do this, I don't ever do that. The way I'm trained, I don't ever do that. When I was racing sprint cars, the most I ever did was tip my head a little bit going into the corner, and you don't do this.
Now you're in a Hans. There's no moving your head at all.
You have Hans. You can't do all that. So my brain doesn't look for those things. So I'm not missing it. But I would say if I was trying to do professional esports, maybe in like an iRacing or like upcoming ACC, triples would probably be the way to go, just because you have that just in case somebody's over here. You can take a quick glance and make sure that somebody's not going to sideswipe you or something like that. But for what I do, the ultra wide works really well. Again, I wouldn't turn down triples, and I wouldn't turn down a VR headset because I
direct drive wheel.
That too. I'll take it all. I'll take it all.
How about Heat 3?
No. But yeah, I think it's, VR is great for people that are in small spaces that can't, logistically have maybe an ultra wide and triples. And I really would, 16:9 is fine. But if you can ever get away from that and get yourself another one of those options, an ultra wide triples or VR, I think you'll be much, I won't say happier, but I think your experience could be better.
I wouldn't go to triple screens at the expense of frame rate. So if you didn't have enough video card to push the graphics you're okay with at a frame rate acceptable to sim racing, then stick to your single screen, because you're going to have basically 3 times the graphics.
Yeah, I think because you've got VR. VR is not just the looking around; it's more the 3D and just the general immersion. Triples, you probably get better. Well, I've used the really low Fanatec. Triples, you get a better, because you can angle them more. You can get a more natural field of view with triple screens than you could with a single. But it's just not convenient. And whereas I think the thing with with this ultra wide screen is that it's just convenient. It's one screen, but like you say, Shaun, the G-Sync frame. I don't think you could do G-Sync on triple screens. Maybe you can. I don't know. I'm not experienced with it. But with just having that frame rate, being able to drive that frame rate on a single widescreen, it's one screen, high frame rate, G-Sync or FreeSync. I think when you factor in all the different variables, if you just had to pick one, I think that's why outside of VR for me, I'd go with the wide thing.
Yeah. I have an odd problem. I have John Hill. A lot of people who watch the show know John Hill. I have him coming over to drive on the G seat today, and I told him this show finishes between 11 and 11:30, and I'm getting
messages. Did you not? You warned him. It's that bloody game of muscle. You ain't shut up. God damn it. What's it? We've made a mistake. Time has broken down itself.
But I don't want to stop what we're doing. I just want to get him in here. So you guys keep on the topic of different displays, because it is a big deal. I mean, I had a different ultra wide. Right back. I had a different ultra wide that went only to 60, and you could overclock it to like 64 before it started skipping frames, which when you're new to sim racing and you're trying to figure all these things out is really confusing. You can overclock and all this. So I was like overclocking the hell out of it. And I was noticing like all this input lag, and I'm like, this monitor sucks. Well, it was because I was overclocking it too far. And there's a test you can do that will show you if it's skipping frames. So that I realized I could only overclock the particular monitor that I bought to 64, even though Linus Tech Tips told me that it could overclock to 89.
I like Linus, though. I do like a bit of Linus. I know.
I'm just saying that particular one. I was like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I bought it because he said it would overclock to 89, and it does. You can, but it actually doesn't work because it skips. So I was like, oh, well, this is fine. And then once I got the BenQ, it goes 144, and I only had a 960 at the time. I have a 1070 now, but I had a 960 at the time, and I was still getting pretty good graphics. And I was in the, 90 to 100, and like you go iRacing and it was like 144 still. And I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. And that's where I noticed that about somewhere in the neighborhood of like 85 to 90 is where I could stop telling it a difference. But I also think that's personal. Like, I think some people are more sensitive to what the frames that they're getting. But yeah, I would never go backwards. Like, if you were going to give me triples and cut down on the frame, go let's say to 60, I'd prefer not to.
I was say with all gamers in general, the frame rate is because you don't just get. It's not that it's just like, obviously with G-Sync and the high it's smoother. It's also there's like a perceptive sort of quality switch with, I think, because a higher frame rate on the monitor, it emulates how you kind of perceive the frame rate of reality. So when you play a driving sim at a higher frame rate rather than 60 FPS, it moves away from it feeling like you're playing a game. It's like comes in sideways. Hello there, boys. Yeah, so it moves away from it being like it gives it another reality. It's like a boost to make it more realistic. In the same way, better quality graphics make it look more realistic, better lighting, a higher frame rate, and as you say, specifically sort of 85 and above, gives it that sort of quality to the smoothness. Which is, I mean, they call it on. When you have the smoothing on TVs, they call it the is it like the soap effect or something? When you put the motion smoothing on TV and it looks god awful because they smooth it weird, but it makes it look too real in a certain way.
Yeah, it gives you that.
Because that's more to do with technology being rubbish on the TVs with that. But it does. If you have something that's being filmed, like a documentary or something that's being filmed, and it's 60 or 60 plus hertz or even higher. It really does stand out as being very different from if you're watching the documentary at like 24 hertz. It does capture sort of reality.
That was the whole thing behind it. That was the whole thing behind IMAX back in the day. It was just and it was instantly, like, even to the uneducated eye, you didn't need to be educated to see the difference. You'd be like, wow, that's really, like, I'm there.
So I would definitely find it hard. No, because I got the BenQ. It's the same. It's the version that you've got, Billy, but the 16:9. But it's the same sort. I think it's a VA panel, same sort of thing, but just the smaller one. But going from the 100, I specifically stayed away from gaming monitors because I knew if I were above 90 hertz, 100 hertz, I knew that anytime I use anything else, it's like, ruined. You can't go back.
Well,
so.
and to be fair, that's kind of why I don't do VR. That's how I feel about VR, because VR isn't implemented in every game, and I don't want to flop back and forth necessarily.
Billy, the Amish sim racer. I sim race without electricity.
I have to power my house with a water wheel in the back. It comes out of the canal.
He's cycling as he drives. I haven't got enough cycle power to power direct drive wheel. I can just do.
That's how my thighs stay in shape.
Oh my God,
Billy, big legs.
But I do see, and I guess that's more the practical side of me sits there and says, what can I bang for buck? What can I not? As much as a PC gaming can be a pain in the ass already, what can I do to not make it worse? Sometimes my brain goes in that direction. So flopping back and forth, and like Brandon, he sits there and goes, "Oh, I love it," and then he gets to something that doesn't have it, or that is giving him problems with it, and then it's I curse you and all this kind of stuff. So I take that into account, and I even triples. I think Dirt Rally didn't even most Codemasters titles don't actually they'll do it, but they don't actually support it, because I think it does a lot of stretching and stuff like that. So, those are all things to keep in mind. But if you're pertaining to one sim, let's say you're just an iRacing person, that does everything. So then go ahead, do your VR triple monitors and direct drive wheels, and everything works. Everything will work great, because iRacing probably is one of the best ones when it comes to controller and peripheral support, I think.
Everything just works on iRacing.
iRacing is a really nice setup. How the wizard on it. I mean, the only thing with iRacing interface, which is weird, is that some of the options aren't on the option page you'd expect. So some of the audio options, it's like, why do that when the actual setup wizard and getting it going is probably one of the best sims for. You don't necessarily have to know anything about simulators and how they work. You could load it up install it and then get into it. It's really nicely done.
Even look at like VR. It's like if you have VR.
Yeah, the VR
installed,
works
like,
really well. Like
do you
combined
wanna-
with the performance.
Yeah, and do you want to use it or not? And if you're like, yeah, I do, it turns it on and it works.
Yeah, and you get to
magically.
choose. You get to choose if you're using the Oculus VR or the Vive
Yeah.
VR.
And then if you say
So,
no,
yeah. It's like-
if you say no, it fires up your single screen like
Right.
normal, like no harm, no foul. And it's the only sim
Yeah.
that I've had that kind of results with switching. You know, I mean, VR is pretty good with the ones that work, but if you're the guy like, because me, I'm streaming and switching became so problematic, and it was like more aggravation than I needed. It was like, you know what? Since I'm not streaming, I have to just not have the VR on that machine at all. It's just screwing everything up.
That's what happened with me with not using VR a lot. Is because I'm doing most of my stuff is streaming, and
Right.
VR isn't conducive to
It's
reading a
hard for me
chat
to
room.
watch. Yeah, it's hard for me to watch.
a
I
lot of
don't do
people-
well with it when I try. Sometimes I can watch it okay, but if the person's moving around a lot or I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't gel well with. I actually can't
Yeah.
watch it too long because I start to feel woozy just watching a video or live stream in VR, and some people don't. Some people just have no problem with it at all. Me,
A
it's,
lot of
it's hard for me to
times-
watch.
Yeah, if it's not locked to the horizon, that usually causes a huge issue for most people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I have it. And unfortunately, sometimes I'll just, if somebody is doing a VR stream or a video, I'll just let the audio play to support what they're doing because I want to watch what they're doing, but I can't. I'd say about 90% of the time I just can't watch it. The only one I could consistently watch somebody do is American Truck Simulator, and I think it's because it's so slow.
Mm-hmm.
There's not, it's not real fast paced or
When you
anything
even
like
have
that.
the time to look around and it's not that
Yeah, and so
distracting.
they're not like trying to do quick, do
Yeah.
this. Even if they look, they're like trying to see if traffic's coming. So it's a slow wait and then look back. I don't know.
Well,
I
and the
seem to
other
be-
thing is, I don't think people realize how annoying they are with their head. So, like, if you're a sim racer, it's like you might go into corners like this and
That's
not
why I
even
would-
realize it. You know, and it's
That's
like,
why I look in my seat. Like there's
Yeah, if
probably
you-
streams
if
of
you-
me like doing ovals, and I start leaning in the seat. I'm like,
Everybody knows the more you lean, the more the car grips going in.
absolutely,
No, absolutely.
absolutely.
It's been like that since Mario Kart. I mean, come on.
Body English prevails in sim racing for sure.
I off topic. I used to, when I was about 9 years old, we raced something called quarter midgets, and there just looks like a really small sprint car. It's like a go-kart, but it looks like a sprint car. And I was just to the era where they were letting kids hang out of the cars. So for those that aren't watching is, you lean way out, your body and your head would lean way out over
Like
the
a
left side.
sidecar guy on a motorcycle.
Yeah. So you would lean to keep all the traction on the left side and weight on the left side of the car, so you could just rip around the corner. And I was at the time I was racing with guys like Chuck Gurney Jr. and Brian Crockett and stuff, and we all were racing together. And my mom was like, he's not leaning out of the car, so my dad had to engineer the car and weight wise for me to not lean out. And we were competitive, won a couple races, but the gist of it is that sensation of leaning out. I think drivers would do it even if they weren't supposed to. Like if there was some
Right.
possible way they could
Right.
lean out of the car.
Yeah,
because even in a race car, I'll tip my head, like, as I'm going in the corner, because when everything pitches, then your head becomes level. Does that make sense? So like
Yeah,
I would
right,
be going through
right.
the corner and hitting ruts and everything, and I'd have my head down like this, and so when the car would bounce, my head would still be level, not like tipped.
Right. Sure, if you took the belts out of all the F1 cars and watched the drivers, I'm sure they'd all end up being like that. Oh, too
So, Billy,
funny.
you're saying you looked like Ace Ventura hanging your head out the window.
Yes. I even screamed going down the road. So
Oh my.
Like a glove.
Well, you
Um,
guys. Oh yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
I was actually going to say, I think we've covered the triples versus ultra wide thing.
Yeah. So Brandon, we already got you chatting. What do you got going on this weekend?
I didn't know. Did you get front seats donation? By the way?
I played the graphic, but I did not give him a big thank you. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, front seat. This weekend, just our typical practice stuff. Probably test those cars in Assetto some more. Boy, other than that, not much. I actually kind of want to get in and do some race room. Haven't done that in a while. I'm a little overdue for that. And
I
one of
can't
these
wait
days
till
I've been talking with
those
Izzy about
GTP cars come out.
Yeah. So I want to give that a crack, and then I've been talking with Izzy about crashing one of Gamer Muscle streams. Maybe see if I can get in there and do some racing.
You're not
with him.
welcome. You're not welcome.
Dang it!
You're only allowed to join if you're slow.
Oh yeah, that's
There's
no
too
problem.
many fast people.
I'm a shoe-in. I'll take up spots for the fast people so they can't get in. But yeah. So other than that, I wanted to thank you, James, for being here. I wanted to thank all the people that have tuned in. It means a bunch to me, and I know Shaun and Billy as well. So just wanted to get that out there before we wrap things up with what you guys are doing.
I think this is our biggest live audience ever. So yeah, absolutely. Great show. James, what are you up to? What do you got going on this weekend?
I've got to finish this SimLab cockpit, which is it. It is awesome, actually. It's an awesome cockpit. So I've got to finish putting
How hard
stuff.
Thing be? It's like 80-20. You put a bolt in, a nut.
It's not hard, but I'm slow. So I've had a few concussions.
For you. Hold on. I missed it. The donation. Izzy donated and said, "Is GM wearing pants?" We can't be sure. Don't give me a thrust. Please don't thrust.
I'm wearing pants. I hope I am.
I need it.
Oh no! The nightmare has come true.
I need.
So getting things back on track here. Let's not talk about underwear. Well, pants in the UK is boxers, briefs. By the way, those in America, pants, trousers. You might be confused there. So you know what's going on. Yeah. So yeah, we're building this. Yeah, building this sim rig, finishing that off. Last week we had an awesome race with George and. I forget his Jardier, George Ortner and Jardier in race room. So I really want to do some more race room. We're always live streaming. I still don't believe it, to be honest, that doing the YouTube, I can't believe people tune in to watch a bold idiot driving sim. So it's awesome. So we're doing more live streaming. I've got some dirt. So we've got the Sparko mod sequential shift and handbrake. Thrustmaster sent us one of them recently, so we're got to review that with Dirt Rally. What else? I mean, you've got the Fanatec DDDs coming out soon. So DDDs. So hopefully we'll be reviewing them soon. Man, it's just too much stuff. It's coming at us. It's awesome. It's so good that sim racing's I can't believe how sim racing's grown as much as it is, which is bonkers to me. Yep. And just things are going well, so I'm going to literally get run over by a bus because I don't believe it half the time. So so it's good. It's all good. What about you, Shaun? What's your plans?
I've finished the review, so I'll be editing. I got a lot of editing.
Oh, for the G seat.
Yeah, I gotta.
I'm really interested to see that because I've seen some of the Pro Formula One ones that bladders. Right. The air bladders. Yeah. Which is achieve the same thing. So I'm really looking forward to your review. I watched Darren Ganji's advert version, the little paddle. So that was cool.
Yeah, we go very in depth. It'll be a long edit, but I'm working on that. And then endurance racing. I gotta get to the point where I'm competent at Nürburgring. We're doing it in the GT3. I think if we had done it in the Mazda, I'd probably be all right already. But that Mercedes is a little twitchy and a little nasty. So yeah, lots of work to do on Nordschleife. And I don't know, probably watch some basketball. We got March Madness kicking in right now, so I'll probably watch a little bit of basketball this weekend. And I don't know, have a good time. Always a good weekend.
Patreon race, forgot about that.
Oh, Patreon race, yeah. What am I thinking? That starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're gonna do a practice tonight because I feel like we do these hot lap hump days, and it's always been fun to walk in and not know what the combo was. But then you had 4 hours of hot lapping, not racing, to achieve your goal. And then I was like, oh, I like that. So I started doing it with the patron racing. But then I'm realizing some people maybe they've never driven that car in track, and maybe they need a few more laps to get acquainted. So now I'm going to start telling people at 6 o'clock on Friday night with a practice room. All right, here's what tomorrow's race will be. So everybody will know the combination tonight. I'll have a practice room open tonight, and then tomorrow will be the race, and I'll be broadcasting. I don't race in this one. I get to kick back and just kind of watch and talk about everybody. So, it's going to be a busy weekend. Lots going on. Good stuff. How about you, Billy?
I'm going to finish editing up the sprint car race that I did. Let's see. I got some new guitar stuff that I'm going to mess with over the weekend.
Ooh. You streaming that?
And
is that your other channel?
No, nobody needs to see that. What else am I doing? I don't know. There's races next week. I'm probably going to try to emulate in some manner. So I'll get, I try to put out a minimum of 2 videos a week. Sometimes I get lucky and put out 3 or 4. But yeah, I don't know. Stuff, things,
Billy,
words. Yeah.
Should we ask chat to suggest names for your guitar YouTube channel?
Billy Strange
No.
Raging.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sexy licks with Billy.
Just one letter
Ooh.
change. Just change that C to
Yeah,
a G.
no, I
You're
got-
done.
So I'm pretty set on the tone that I have for the band that I play in. And then, so I got a new mixer and a new microphone to do the vocals. And then I bought an effects pedal, which is by Electrolux. And it does synths. So I've always struggled to find like a good synth pedal because every once in a while they just kind of sound cool to play with. So that's what I'll be messing with.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I want to thank you all. This has been a really fun show. James, you are quite a character.
You're never coming back again.
James, we'll see you in a few years. I hope things go well for you. No, it's been
Hang
fun.
on. That was sarcastic.
I hope they go wonderful.
I hope no one's sitting outside your house with a blow dart with poison on the tip.
I hope Brexit allows you to continue streaming on and
Banned.
Wow.
All illegal
Wow.
now.
Hey, you started. You brought it up first, I should say. No, but it really has been one of my favorite shows. We've had a great audience. It's been wonderful hanging out with you, James. You're the life of the party. A lot of fun.
Thank you, Sean.
Great opinion on things.
Thank you,
and
Billy.
That is the
thank
whole
you.
point of this
Thanks-
show,
thanks
though.
for
Thank you,
hanging
Brandon.
Oh, Gary, thanks. Oh, can GM do an impress? Oh, they want you to do an impression of Shaun before we wrap it up here.
Oh, here we go. Here we
Okay,
go.
Sean. Hang on, I'm Sean. Okay, guys.
Now he's talking
We've-
third person.
We've finished the show, guys. This is Shaun Cole on the SImpit. You've been watching the Ubuntu Revolution that I'm sat on right now, underneath me, constructed from drainage pipes. Now, I'd like to thank everybody for watching here.
Wait, we can't
And,
leave without doing me.
Click the like
That sounded
button.
weird.
Click the like button, subscribe, and donate today. Thank you, guys. You'll be real good, boys. You go. Hamburger. All the blind viewers, that are watching are now thinking, "Where? Who? Which one's Sean?" Oh. So you know.
Jesus.
Oh
spot
my
on.
God.
Oh my lord.
Spot on impersonation.
And on that note,
Wait, they want Shaun to do an impression of GM.
I can't do it. I
Look,
can't.
I need some donation alerts, Sean. Come on. Here we go.
I don't
Here we
do
go.
accents. Oh my God,
Oh,
I
man,
don't
think
do
Come
I
on,
paid to
accents.
no
see that
pressure.
one. Hear it.
In 5, 4,
No, we're
3,
gonna have to wait.
2, 1.
I'm not gonna do it.
You're
I just
doing
like
it, Sean.
I like when GM does an impression of me. It sounds like Dory doing it. Hello. The whales.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Dory.
It's so hello.
Wow.
What's your name?
Wow.
Oh,
Yes, I think
no.
we're gonna have to
Okay.
leave it there. James, you get the last laugh. That is for sure. So I will do this in my way. But no, it's been a great show. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I want everybody to get out there, do some racing, have a great weekend, and tune in next Friday for the next edition of Beyond the Sim. But that's gonna do it for this one, and we will see you on the track.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.